Good morning. It is the final week of the Hearthstone Global Games leading up to that all-important BlizzCon, and only 15 teams remain. At the end of this week, there will be 8 teams left. This is Derek. My name is Falcone, and we're here with Raven to bring you through the action.
Yeah, it should be a very exciting week of games. Cannot wait to get underway with it. Because while we have eliminated, as you alluded to, 1 team so far, with 2 already getting their tickets, I believe, in New Zealand and Bulgaria to BlizzCon, we're going to have pretty much every game today is either going to be a knockout or a ticket through to BlizzCon. Let's
take a look at who the 4 groups are before we go any further. Just to fill you in, if you've not been keeping track, Group A, we have Brazil, Chile, Spain, and Portugal. Group B, the United Kingdom, Bulgaria, who have qualified to BlizzCon already, and Hong Kong. And the Netherlands have been eliminated. I was going to just breeze past that one. Group C, Singapore, Chinese Taipei, New Zealand, and the United States. And Group D, Ukraine, China, Switzerland, and Norway. As you said, New Zealand also have already qualified.
Yeah, got some very good games on the cards today, as it were. And we're starting with a real good one coming up here first in Switzerland versus Ukraine, which is an elimination match. I don't think anyone would have been expecting that from Ukraine, in particular, coming into the top 16, what with them being our last year's runners-up. But I, for one, cannot wait to see if Switzerland can stand up to the prestige, the pedigree of Ukraine as a team.
Let's take a look at Group D and fill you in on all of the action from this group so far and take a look at what the teams need to do to qualify. So Norway versus China will be the winners match coming up later today, but right now, as Derek was saying, Ukraine versus Switzerland. Ukraine came 2nd place in the Hearthstone Global Games last year, and this could be the end of their HGG 2018 run.
But in the rest of Group D, as we were talking about, I believe in your interview yesterday with Zorkthar, he was bigging up his team of Norway. Yeah. He was giving it all that, saying they are the best team. And to be honest, in the game we saw Norway versus Ukraine, I would absolutely believe it. They were just playing out of their mind.
Yep. Yeah, that's the only fair way, I think, of describing that game. They were unfavored all the way through, but they managed to take it down anyway. So Ukraine aren't going to be feeling good. They're going to have prepared to face off against Norway going into last week. They lost. Now they have to face off against Switzerland. And who knows what's going to happen here. I doubt Ukraine expected to be stuck in the losers bracket.
Yeah, I don't think they would have expected that either. But, you know, I had the suspicion last week where I was saying in a lot of their games I would have made different lines.
Yeah.
But I trusted the fact that it's such strong players like Kalento in particular. You know what? They're better than me. I'll say they probably know the decks more inside and out. But then talking to Zorkthar, who had analysed the games with the rest of the Norwegian team last week, they were saying they disagreed with some of the plays that Ukraine were making. Maybe they weren't working as a unit as well as they could have done. I believe it was Insane and Old Boy were together, whereas the other players were separate, which can cause some divide, I guess, in communications, which I think was the root of the issue for Ukraine last time. It was not agreeing as a cohesive unit, which Norway was saying is their strongest asset.
All right, now before we jump into the game, one last little bit of housekeeping. Do you guys know about HGG Cheer? HGG Cheer is the new system we're using. Whoa, we've passed 17 million cheers. That's incredible. You as an individual can purchase bits from above me on the Twitch video client, and then you can spend them in the chat box. And as you can see on the screen, there are special rewards. If you spend 2,500 bits in the Hearthstone Global Games, then you will earn every single reward that you see on screen there. You choose the country that you'd like to support, you choose how many bits you'd like to support them with, and there's the leaderboard. United States currently, well, still leading the way with almost 9 billion bits.
Do you want to try that one more time, mate?
Sorry, 9 million. Almost 9 million. Jesus, I said billion.
Like Dr. Evil in Austin Powers. 9 billion bits.
They would love it if it was 9 billion bits,
sure they
because the players in the teams receive a good share of the revenue. I mentioned this briefly yesterday, but I was talking to the United Kingdom players over the weekend. They were very excited about the system. Free money for the players is only a good thing.
And even for the Netherlands being the first team knocked out in the top 16, they're number 2 in terms of HGG Cheer so far. So they got a little bit of compensation for coming along for the ride, as well as giving us some very entertaining games.
But what we want to see is you cheering on your favorite teams when they are winning their games. So pick a team to support and get cheering. Right, we are just about ready to start the first match of the day. So let's take a look at the teams representing Switzerland and Ukraine. For Switzerland, it's Gushinaj, the Rabin, Knights, and Hypno. But for Ukraine, it's Colento, Insane, Nayria, Old Boy. Derek, do you think it's fair to say that one of these teams is not like the other?
I would definitely say all of the HGG teams are not like the other. But in terms of tournament pedigree, community renown, and popularity, it's fair to say Ukraine is pretty firmly in the lead. With, in particular, Nayria and Colento being very popular personalities, streamers in their own rights as well as competitive tournament players. They are pretty far ahead of any of the players that Switzerland have to offer, to be honest.
Colento is never going to live down this sort of air of expertise that he has, because ever since Hearthstone was young, when he was sort of the first best player in Hearthstone. Yeah. There are so many players that sort of dipped in and out of Hearthstone over the years who haven't been keeping track of the competitive scene, who to them, they just know that Colento is one of the best players in the world.
Absolutely, and he is. It's not just the fact that he was, lucky at the start or rode the wave of popularity. He's just like Neo in the Matrix. He just sees things that other people can't see.
Let's take a look at the picks and bans for this series. Here we go. First up, banned decks. Yeah, okay, it's going to be the Quest Rogues.
Yeah, we've seen it time and time again in the top 16. It does seem that most players are going for, most countries are going for the control and anti-control strategies. Way more Quest Rogues than Odd Rogues is what we're seeing mostly, apart from China, I believe, being one of the few teams to bring an Odd Rogue, much to Norway's happiness, I'm sure. But here, getting rid of those right at the start, and then first decks being banned, the Druid on both sides. It should be that all of these decks will struggle with the Token Druid, because there is obviously not the Quest Warrior, which is so fantastic against it, or a lot of the Warlocks, because those are being banned away pretty quickly as well. I imagine Token Druid should be doing pretty well for both sides in this series.
Yeah, Token Druid and Hunter picked straight away. Things only start to waver a little bit after the Warlock bans on both sides, where one team says, we don't want to play against Priest, the other team says, we don't want to play against Shadowwalk. But at that point, the main strategy has been set, right? We're banning Rogues, we're playing Druids and Hunters, we're going to try and win the game that way.
And it looked pretty even after the picks and bans, and with the way that the matchups have lined up, it's still looking fairly even, I would say. You were saying you believe Switzerland to be slightly favoured. I was saying I think Ukraine might be in a slightly better position. They've got a couple of favourable matchups each. I guess it's just how miserable you think each matchup is.
Well, let's take a look, and you guys can judge for yourselves. Here is the matchups, the way that the decks have lined up. First up, we've got Gustanaj on Control Priest versus Old Boy on the Control Mage. Then we have Knights versus Nayria with your favorite matchup. It's our favorite matchup. It's the Odd Warrior Mirror.
Yeah, once again, we are cursed. I don't know what I did in a previous life to get another Odd Warrior Mirror. Probably like slapped a puppy or something like that. I know. I mean, this is what you get. Like, that seems like an appropriate punishment for doing something that evil. I can't think of anything that's as evil as that to deserve an Odd Warrior Mirror, but not much more evil than that, to which you would deserve jail.
Yeah, in the grand scheme of things, casting an Odd Warrior Mirror, not so bad. And it's going to be interesting as well, because I believe you were saying that Ukraine doesn't actually run Elise in their deck.
Yeah, which, it can still be an interesting game. There are situations where one Odd Warrior team can tempo out the game, can pull pretty far ahead with minions. Beryllium Nullifier in particular, as I'm sure you know, is a fantastic card in that matchup. But it would appear to me that the team with the Elise Trailblazer should be in a very favourable position.
Yep, I agree. But first up, this Control Priest versus the Control Mage, Derek. We were talking about this before, and we think that the matchup is quite even. Maybe the Mage is slightly favoured, but really, and I hate to say it, it does come down primarily to who draws that hero card first.
Yeah, the Death Knights are very important in this matchup. And this is a matchup that you have to be very careful as to whose opinion you take on it, because these are both not necessarily tier 1 decks. These are pet decks. These are decks that certain pro players absolutely adore, right, and say are the best deck in the game by miles if you play it correctly, if you're not a moron. However, that means if you ask a Control Priest player, is it favored? They'll be like, yeah, it's like a 90% matchup. You never lose. And then if you ask a Control Mage player, they'll say, yeah, you never lose. How could you possibly lose? You have too much healing and too much removal. I personally feel that if you can find Frostlit Chainer in any timely fashion, you should be in a very good spot as the Mage.
Yep, Can always save those Arcane Artificers back, playing both the Flame Strike for some burst armor gain later on as well. There's there are a few things the Mage can do to try and stay alive. As everything thrown away on both sides, they just want to find the hero card. Sindragosa, not quite the legendary Ukraine are looking for, but at least both players have failed equally.
Yeah, though that is the game I'm looking for, where it's an even playing field. Both players find their Death Knights quickly, or neither find them quickly. But in the meanwhile, it's not like the Control Mage mirror, where the game doesn't really even begin until like turn 20 or something, when you're both in fatigue and it gets really interesting. This matchup, the Control Priest can make a big push for board in the mid stages of the game through the use of Scale Worm, Twilight Drake. If the removal isn't there for Old Boy, he could find himself in a somewhat difficult position. Or he could not.
Probably shouldn't have gasped so soon. It is only turn 2, but still. Like, Frostless Jaina has been drawn. if you know 7 more turns do go by and Anduin's still not found by Switzerland, then Switzerland are going to be in a world of pain.
Yeah, they've got a little bit of cycle though, exploiting one of the weaknesses of Control Mage is that its small removals, its early game removals are very limited indeed. It doesn't really have any. So it has to just leave up these utility minions at the start of the game for quite a long time. But that's not the end of the world for Old Boy. There's obviously no ability to draw yet because Old Boy isn't going to be pinging this so it can be healed up. He's not playing any minions so that it can attack in and heal up.
Sorry, Derek. I'm Sold Boy on Old Boy. I think he's got this.
What an original joke, Mr. Falcone.
Oh, same could be said to you.
Yeah, I did also steal that one. Fair enough.
So you think Gusanaj just aggressively tries to put himself on the board now? Like, Scale Worm as the 4-mana 5/4 looks okay.
I'm struggling to think of when it would be much better. Let's take a look at Ukraine's deck list for the Control Mage. You don't usually see Acolytes of Pain anymore, yeah, so you don't want to smork that down and take it out before it can draw too many cards. There's no real minion you have to rush down and kill, like a must-kill minion.
Yeah.
So I agree, getting it down here before they can go for a Meteor, Flame Strike, Blizzard, anything like that.
Control Mage is a deck that seems to have changed pretty significantly, actually, since before the expansion. Obviously, cards like Ziliax, Bright-Eyed Scout becoming standard. All of the giggling inventors you could possibly put in the deck.
Absolutely. I do not like the lists I've seen that cut the giggling inventors. Because they are really good in the early game because it's a giggling inventor, just straight up it's good. And in the late game, it's a water elemental when you play it and then ping it straight away.
This is the old, like, Control Mage or Big Spell Mage is the ultimate sit there, do nothing, prevent your opponent from doing anything deck, isn't it?
Yep. And one of the other biggest inclusions that I actually really like in Control Mage is the Astromancers, the 7-drop that summons a minion with a mana cost equal to your hand size. So you can make some pretty big aggressive pushes with the Mage now with effectively a better Spiteful Summoner put in your deck a lot of the time.
Worth noting there, Gusanaj's Scale Worm actually did bait out a Polymorph there. That's one less water elemental later on. So you could definitely argue, although it was dealt with immediately, that Scale Worm definitely did its job.
Yeah. There weren't many choices, it's worth pointing out for Ukraine. Like, I was thinking maybe you could go Bright-Eyed Scout, but I didn't like it much. Because although he has a plethora of 5-drops there to play down, the coin, I think, is pretty much reserved for Coin Jaina on turn 8.
Sure.
I would imagine that is very likely to happen because every single turn of Jaina you can get is a massive boost to your game plan.
And also, Bright-Eyed Scout would have been value traded, Gusanaj would have healed it back up again, still had control of the board, Old Boy would have then had to deal with it with something. As, yeah, Old Boy's hand is really lacking here. The fact that that Cleric has been buffed up is causing lots of issues for Ukraine, because he can't even just drop Ziliax and deal with something.
It kind of is, but he doesn't need to do anything. He's just being tickled by these minions. They're not actually doing anything, because one Jaina, one Artificer, he is straight back up to a very healthy life total. And with this chip damage, until it gets down to around the 15 health mark, it doesn't really matter, because I would imagine Gusanaj is going to be trying to set up a lethal with that Alex Straza he has in hand. So this minion damage really is the least of Ukraine's concern.
Look! Look!
Wow.
Oh, that's not what you're looking for. It's a fair risk. I think it's about a third of your deck, maybe slightly less, a quarter of your deck is below the 5 mana cost slot.
It's one of those cards, though, Bright-Eyed Scout. Well, when it does work, it does some serious work.
I mean, we saw a 5 mana Dragoncaller Alana, didn't we, last week?
And they still lost.
They did still lose that game. They only summoned 2 dragons, though. What on earth is that? A 5 mana 13/13?
Definitely wouldn't play that card on my deck.
Pathetic. Surprisingly considered game here from both sides. Not much has happened, to be perfectly honest, so far, but they are, I think, expressing how much for both sides they want to not be making mistakes this time around. They want to be absolutely on the ball and maximizing their percentages, because this is a close matchup. Neither player knows whether the other has a Death Knight yet, so they're thinking, I could absolutely be very much in this.
That's a lot of potential card draw for Switzerland, but still no Shadow Reaper Anduin.
And I think Ukraine might be sensing that the card draw could get a little bit scary now. Maybe there's a Pyromancer in hand. So some kind of way to deal with this Cleric now, I would be very unsurprised to see. Probably just a Meteor.
Yeah, Meteor's pretty clean here. It seems very wasteful. Hitting a Northshire Cleric with a 15 damage Meteor, but hey. Not much choice there.
It's a pretty big loss to use the Meteor here, because it's not like you're expecting to be overrun by pressure in the late game. I think what the real loss of using this Meteor is the fact that you are potentially giving up a Water Elemental after you play Jaina. Because if they have a 4 health minion on the board and another minion, you can, target the other one, deliberately leave it at 1 health, get a ping. It's pretty niche, but it could be the case they are foregoing a Water Elemental there.
I'd argue that losing the Polymorph is worse than losing the
I would
Meteor.
definitely agree.
But as Old Boy has the 2 Giggling Inventors, which are clearly just being saved for after Jaina gets played, it's not the end of the world. What is looking bad, again though, Gustanage, we've mentioned that Anduin hasn't been drawn, that's something. Both Mind Blasts have been drawn naturally from the deck.
That's true.
That means that the total damage output in one turn from Switzerland is never going to go higher than 16.
And now, I guess we should take a look at the cards they actually do want to hit with Shadow Visions. They run no copies of Holy Fire.
Not that then.
Yeah, which would have been, I guess, a good substitute because it's more damage to face. They run 1 Silence, 1 Mass Dispel. I don't think they should be worrying about drawing cards. Like, drawing cards is fine here because they're never winning in Fatigue anyway. As I would imagine, Psychic Screams will have to be used just to clear up Water Elementals.
So awkward. Both Psychic Screams have been drawn. Both Mind Blasts have been drawn. Both Divine Hymns have been drawn. What are they even going to use Shadow Visions for?
And now we see the quickest turn of the game by miles. What do you know? It's Coin Jaina, hand in head for Gustanage there. He knows for the moment this is looking incredibly dire for Switzerland.
I mean, just all of these little aspects are working against them, unless they can somehow get board control, which seems very unlikely at this stage. I mean, what do they do? They Psychic Scream this away, then they hope that nothing gets played by Old Boy and drop a Primordial Drake and then hope that that doesn't get dealt with. I'm saying the word hope a lot.
It's a lot of hopes. And it's important to have hope, you've got to believe. But it's also important to have realistic expectations. So for Switzerland, if they do want to gain back board control, which I absolutely agree is a necessary component of winning this game for them, how do they go about that? Can they afford to use a Psychic Scream on this currently relatively innocuous board? If they'd gone Psychic Scream there, they probably would have been met with, I don't know, Giggling Inventor Ping or Astromancer or Syndragosa. Probably not Dragoncaller Alana because they haven't played enough minions, but something would have been developed onto the board. And because they can't get more Psychic Screams off of Shadow Visions, which they would also quite like, they're left in a situation where they just don't have enough board clears, I think.
Old Boy just has so many tools available to him. It's really difficult to see how Switzerland are going to come back How many Cabal Shadow Priests do? Just one copy of Cabal Shadow Priest.
Just
Okay.
the one.
That can be relevant, but
Yeah.
there's no real single card that Gustanaj is going to want to take with that.
It's a very fine needle to thread here for Gustanaj, where he has to hope that Old Boy goes too much all in on one minion. Maybe that be the Syndragosa, the Lich King in their deck, or a big Astromancer target. Then they go Acolyte into, Twilight Acolyte into the Cabal Shadow Priest. Hope that it somehow ends in a situation where that can't be dealt with, and then they Alex Straza the next turn. I don't even know. It feels very optimistic indeed.
Well, there it is. No good targets at the moment, unless they wanted to take that Water Elemental, which, I mean, it would be a little bit of a board swing, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know how impactful it actually seems, but it is a board swing.
This is a big component of Priest play, though, or I suppose any deck that runs a complete hard board clear, like Psychic Scream or Brawl to a lesser extent, where you need to decide when you develop your minions in relation to your board clears.
Yeah.
Because if Switzerland just go for a big play onto the board here, are they hoping that will lead them to a victory? Do they then not play Psychic Screams for the rest of the game? Or do they accept they'll go for it now, eventually lose board control again, and then Psychic Scream?
And then have one more chance, sort of, to get back onto the board.
But then their play onto the board is weaker because they've used their trump cards of Twilight Acolyte into Cabal Shadow Priest. Nothing else looks good this turn at all. But I just question if they do go for the Twilight Acolyte Cabal Shadow Priest, if it's optimistic enough of a play.
Nah, they're going to go for it. No, they're not.
Yeah, I mean, whatever they were doing, they're clearly not happy about it.
That feels like such a weak Psychic Scream.
And I think this is probably what I was talking about coming into play for Switzerland here. They realize if they use this combo on a not big minion, the game's just over because they can't swing the board with a big enough tempo swing anymore.
I was wondering if there was any reason to consider playing the Alex Straza that turn. I mean, there are the taunts in the way, yes. There was one Water Elemental on the board, sure. But it just looked like all of his other options were terrible.
They were rubbish. I think Alex Straza is like the trumpiest of trump cards.
After Anduin, right?
Yeah. Like Anduin is just, you play it because you have to win the game. That is absolutely crucial. Alex Straza is like the trick you can play to try and get them down to that 16 health point. If Alex Straza had been played while an Elemental is on the board, Polymorph Ping kind of just closes things out, I think. And the other thing, I need to come up with like an abbreviation for this. It's like the Alex Straza to Anduin time. You want that to be as short as possible. You always want to have played Anduin before Alex Straza, because if you play Alex Straza and don't have the hero powers activated from Shadow Reaper Anduin, you give them so much time to heal back up.
You're right, there should be like a specific term for that amount of time.
A to A, Alex Straza to Anduin. That's probably a very inappropriate analogy for something that I'm just saying.
Now again, it's almost an identical board state to the one we saw when the Psychic Scream was played the previous turn, only this time the Neutrons have Divine Shields and there's a Stonehill Defender. So this is looking like a better Psychic Scream turn, but that's it. Then both Psychic Screams are gone.
What then? You go Psychic Scream, next turn they play whatever big boy they have in hand. You go, hopefully, Twilight Acolyte Cabal Shadow Priest to steal it. So I think it's probably going to end up being a Primordial Drake turn instead. And again, hope that they don't have the answer to it.
And it takes very little for Ukraine to have the answer to our Primordial Drake here.
This is just a situation where Switzerland are going to be saying, man, in this damage to face combo deck, I wish I could spend 20 mana in one turn to do all the things I wanted to. And then they realize, damn it, we should be playing Druid, where the rules of Hearthstone just do not apply anymore.
Good point. And again, still working against Gustanaj, the fact that not a single Shadow Visions has been drawn. What that means is that if Switzerland play the second Psychic Scream, Ukraine then know that there's no Psychic Scream left in the deck. They know they don't have to play around it. And they can just go all in. They can play Alanas, they can play Ziliax, Syndragosa, like whatever they want.
And they will be keeping track of that. Pretty much every team we've talked to has said someone on their team is designated as the keeping track of which cards have been played. What are they safe to do in this
A
instance?
human Hearthstone deck tracker, basically.
Exactly. I have started using deck tracking again recently since I got a new computer, and it is pretty staggering how quickly you become dependent on it.
Yeah.
Like, I'm partly joking here, but also it's a real skill to develop to be able to, in a competitive setting, keep track of all the cards that have been played. What are you allowed to do? Which I think is one of the greatest assets of playing in a team.
It is. Oh, well, when I was competing in the Prem last weekend, one of the things I realized straight away is I'm not hand tracking at all.
Yeah.
I have no idea what cards were kept in the mulligan, how many there were, etc. Deck tracker obviously banned in this event for anyone that was wondering.
Nick! Oh, a shadow.
And here it is. That turn that we were all thinking Gusenaj would eventually make for the big old swing onto the board. It looks significantly juicier this turn than it did a few turns ago when he was considering it and ended up going with the Psychic Scream, which, again, is a reason why I think this was the right way to do it. You have to make your big play onto the board after you've cleared with Psychic Scream.
Quickly.
We can see it will probably be dealt with relatively easily through, I don't know, Polymorph or Blizzard over 2 turns.
Let me change your mind.
Well, there you go. This is the swing turn we've been talking about.
It is really weird to see a Neutron being drawn from the deck.
That's a wild card.
Does it have the watermark of GVG?
No,
or?
it has the Boomsday Wolf,
Oh, right, okay, interesting.
which is pretty strange, actually.
So it is technically a discrete different card from
Yeah.
GVG and Neutron.
Yep.
Interesting.
I'm curious now. I'd like to look back and see if Web Spinners from Ball of Spiders, like which watermark they have.
Oh, yeah.
Should be the same thing. It should have the new one, I guess.
Time
Or Grand Tournament one or whatever.
So options available to Old Boy on this turn. We could obviously see Blizzard for a stall, although that doesn't, from where I'm sitting, I believe, make for an easy water elemental generation on this turn. So maybe it's just Polymorph, nice and simple. Get that dragon into a water elemental, and then deal with the rest after. This makes sense. Just get yourself an Ellie every single turn of the game.
Just Old Boy using very few resources here to get this work done.
Yup.
And it's just not mattering too much. And still, 35 health versus the Mind Blast deck that's drawn both Mind Blast and hasn't drawn Anduin. We said at the start of the game, a lot of this will come down to who draws their hero card first. Switzerland just still isn't in sight.
And, you know, if Ukraine hadn't drawn the Annoyatron to taunt up the board, we could have seen Alex Strasser and 5 to face,
Oh,
bring
yeah.
them down to the 15 health total.
That Annoyatron was a pretty good draw.
But they heal up for 6 then. They probably deal with the board, or at the very least freeze it. It seemed very optimistic. Well, I suppose it was the only play available to Gusenaj, so it's not a particularly optimistic play, but expecting it to win the game or get them down to a bursting potential, especially with Anduin still not being found, I think was a little bit unfortunate for Switzerland.
As you can see there, obviously, if you didn't already know this, silence effects do not work on elementals with lifesteal because that is an aura effect, much like the Quest Rogue effect. You can't silence it away.
Well, then why isn't he healing up then? I'd like to report a bug, please, Blizzard.
Just not even dignifying that with a response.
You just did.
I know.
Got ya.
That's why I
nerd.
stopped halfway through saying that.
It's too easy, Falk. It's just too easy.
Shadow Vision's now picked up from by Gusenaj, but it's just too late. Like they have, I think you said they have a silence. Maybe they have a powered shield. Great.
Yeah, what do they actually have? Yeah, they have 1 copy of Silence, 1 Powered Shield,
Cool.
another Visions.
Great. Visions could be good though. If Anduin's drawn, he could just cycle Shadow Vision.
Yeah. I guess that's their chance, because even if it doesn't go to face, that's 3 pings a turn, 6 damage, which is a water elemental kill. So maybe the plan for Gusenaj is draw Anduin, never play any minions, ping off water elementals every turn until no more can be generated by Old Boy, then you question mark, and then you win.
Yeah, then you crane play Syndragosa and ping off one of those things.
You fill in the blanks in the middle. That's just details. Semantics.
I think it's probably a little bit more important than that. Well, Switzerland find themselves yet again in this position where Old Boy has developed too much of a board. He could Psychic Scream it away, but then that's it. No more removal.
And it's just the constant threat from Old Boy playing so conservatively with his resources. He will always be able to generate a board. If Gusenage goes Psychic Scream, that's not good enough. A board will be generated. If he goes Alexstrasza to face, it will be cleared up. Ukraine will heal right back up to a healthy life total. Anduin is the missing piece of the puzzle, but it does look like this is a charity shop puzzle that has half the pieces missing.
Old Boy stole Gusanage's puzzle pieces.
That is so devious. Do you like a jigsaw puzzle?
Haven't done one in a while. Do you?
I love a jigsaw.
You seem like the puzzle type.
Oh man, love a jigsaw. My old flatmate at uni, he was a puzzle fiend. It was his greatest asset as a flatmate. He had one of those impossible puzzles that was like a pile of baked beans or something. That was like meant to be impossible to do, but he did it.
Have you ever seen or done one of the big 3D ones, like the Eiffel Tower?
I have not, but they do look fun. I'm more of a puzzle purist, if you will, a traditionalist. But there for Gusenage, clearly indicating by just straight up passing the turn that his time to shine in this matchup, his big swing turn, has not yet arrived. He needs to hold back for the moment and then eventually pull back onto the board on a later date. Which I think is a fair assumption because, again, as I pointed out on this turn, Psychic Scream just repopulates the board. Alexstrasza heals back up. Nothing's doing enough yet.
Gusenage not got all the time in the world, though, as Old Boy now actually starting to deal some serious damage.
Interesting turn there from Old Boy as well. He was clearly considering the old self-ping on the Raven Familiar to set up for a ping on the following turn. There wasn't any way to cleanly generate a Water Elemental with minion attacks into the Twilight Acolyte. No, sorry, into the Twilight Drake. And even if he could have done, you don't want to be sacrificing Water Elementals that already exist on the board, necessarily. So I think it's not, not necessarily too bad to pass this up. We could have obviously seen double attack with the Water Elementals, Blizzard ping on this turn, maybe even with 2 Artificers as well. Wasn't a bad way to go about it.
Sure.
Because you do want to stop this Twilight Drake chunking to face. However, a Twilight Drake that takes away, that deals damage to your health rather than to armor is a lot better, because Alexstrasza still has to come down for Switzerland to win this game.
And that'll be why Old Boy decided, you know what, no, this is the turn to start going face. I've got a board that's clearly he's struggling to deal with. Let's start ending the game. Gusenage, he's going to do that thing we said a few turns ago. It's like we Shadow Visions, not for the Anduin pings, but for the Iron Man support player. And hey, he actually did a pretty good job there.
Good job, buddy. We are proud of you, Gusenage.
Ever so briefly, slightly ahead on the board again.
Yeah, he is indeed.
Until Astromancer gets played, or
Syndragosa, because we could just see a straight-up trade to clear off the Twilight Drake. It's far from perfect, because you do obviously want to be making Water Elementals every single turn. But I guess Syndragosa self-ping would allow you to do that whilst also clearing up a little damage on the board. Because if the play were to be Alexstrasza silence your own Twilight Drake to bring it down to 1 health just so you can attack with it because it's not frozen anymore, that would be 8 damage to face from 16, bringing your opponent down to 8. maybe even without the Anduin, that could be enough damage to get a surprise lethal on Ukraine. I think it's very unlikely, but I think that's maybe the thing that Ukraine needs to be worrying about. That's their chance of losing this.
The time is now.
So yeah, they are going to go ahead and play Thunder Ghost. So I was wondering what they were saving this for. I was thinking maybe they're trying to see Psychic Scream used first, but then actually it's not that bad against Psychic Scream because then you can play it again.
All right, what's in the box? Oh!
Well, it is just... Don't get excited, guys. It is just a 10 mana 10/10, okay?
I will get excited. It's Mechathune. I agree. There is roughly a 0% chance, dare I say exactly a 0% chance of this ever activating. However, still a bit of fun.
Both of the cards on our HGG walls are in Old Boy's hand right now.
Oh yeah, right you are. A great thing to comment upon in our audio based commentary here.
You'll see it when we come back to our cameras.
So for Gusanage, while the ability to go for the Alexstrasza self-ping is not available, we could see Alexstrasza in attack phase. It leaves, what, 12? Oh, exactly 15 attack on the board. So that is not a possibility whatsoever anymore, with lethal being set up. Defensive action needs to be taken by Switzerland here, or Ukraine will just be closing out the game, not through fatigue, but through pressure, straight up.
Yep, and so as defensive a play as possible gets made by Gusanage, even with the Divine Hymn to heal up. Got to admit, 3 mana 8/4, pretty good. 3 mana 8/4 that reduces one of your opponent's minions' attack by 6, also pretty good.
Yeah.
Is it good enough though? I don't know. It's got Gusanage back on the board again for this turn, but with 2 Blizzards present in Ukraine's hand, it's not going to last that long.
And this is a really interesting point to focus on for Ukraine, which is the Arcane Artificers. Obviously, that is their biggest swing in terms of health advantage for the rest of the game. But what they need to be able to say at that point is, I can commit to having board control for the rest of the game. Because if they gain a bunch of armor with Arcane Artificers and have that chunked away by minion damage, that's really bad.
Yeah.
They do not want that to happen at all, because then there wasn't really much point. They want to do that to mitigate Mind Blast damage and Anduin hero power damage. So I wouldn't be that surprised to see the Arcane Artificers held back. But given they have double Blizzard in hand, they can just go double Artificer Blizzard this turn. And then if they survive Blizzard next turn, the upside is potentially so big.
All right, they're hedging. They're going to play 1 Artificer on the Blizzard. I also like the look of that, though. The fact that Switzerland's board is frozen, there are only very few cards in their hand. It's possible they won't be able to deal with the Artificer. I was going to say, though, only one Dustbreaker had been played, so the other one drawn would now allow Gusanage to deal with this. But he's still in such a horrible position. He can silence one of his own minions to hit face, like you said, after playing Alexstrasza, but no, they're just dead if they do that.
Yeah. So there is, what, 6, 8, 9 damage available for Ukraine next turn, so no lethal represented quite yet. But for Switzerland, if they do go for something crazy, as you were saying, like Alexstrasza, silence, smack face, I just don't think that's an option anymore with the Artificer on the board. They would be healing for at least back up to 30, I would say, for the 6, or close to 30 at the very least.
This Artificer just put Gusanage in a horrible position. Like, does he have to Dustbreaker here? What does he do with the rest of his turn? Maybe he just has to silence the Artificer?
It's not much, but it also still has lifesteal, because that is just an elemental. And the 1 extra healing can be the difference, although it looks in this instance like it's not going to be one-off healing for Ukraine. They are just still miles in the lead, not even close.
Gosh, just a horrible position every single turn for Switzerland. Yeah, okay, they're going to play the Dustbreaker. They deal with the Artificer. It still leaves both of these Water Elementals on the board. They're drawing a card very late into the turn.
And I do think for Gusanage, with Anduin in the bottom 3 cards, I'm assuming they remembered to put it in the deck. I think they've given it a very valiant effort here. Are you just checking the deck?
It's on the deck list.
It's in the
so if it's not in the deck, then we're going to disqualify them anyway.
But I think they've done a very valiant effort here, considering how against the odds they've been right from the Jaina being drawn, or even right from the start of the game, you could argue, because they do have a pretty impressive board presence here. Considering how much removal Control Mage has, this is very respectable. It's not going to get the job done, as we can see. Second Blizzard, I imagine, just completely decimates everything that Gusenaj is trying to go for here. But it came... I feel like there was maybe a chance. Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to sugarcoat it. Gusenaj really was just never in this game.
If Anduin was drawn on turn 8, then maybe.
Yes.
Maybe it would have been a very different game. He would have had the means to remove Ukraine's minions more efficiently without using up as many resources. But this just isn't that game of Hearthstone.
And after a long discussion, it would seem, by Old Boy and the rest of the Ukrainians over voice communication, they're making the obvious play. I think the play that we were all expecting in Blizzard Ping. What they do with the rest of it, they're doing the same thing they did last turn. Go and face, closing out the game, forcing forcing Switzerland to make these defensive plays that they do not want to make. They want to be playing aggressive to close things out. But I think they are pretty much forced into a Psychic Scream on this turn. Or maybe a Pyromancer. Can they get enough?
So the turn Anduin gets drawn, can't even be played.
Scream. Yeah, I think it's going to be a Scream on this turn. Like, you can look at the benefits of maybe going Wild Pyro with a bunch of spells on this turn, but in order to do enough, 3 damage, you're still leaving 5 damage on the board, and you're basically clearing off your own board anyway. You may as well just go with the Psychic Scream, I think. But you just die to Dragoncaller Alana and Astromancer.
And that's the thing. Like, after a Psychic Scream gets played, how does Gusenaj possibly win the game? Like, where does he ever get the damage from that he needs?
Well, okay, so if he goes Psychic Scream this turn, and then Astromancer or Dragoncaller Alana is played, snap Anduin, you probably clear off most of the board at least.
Then what?
Well, I mean, it's not a good situation.
Like, where does the damage actually come from?
Yeah.
Both Mind Blasts have been drawn. If he's playing Scream this turn, which he has to, by the time he plays Anduin, he can't cycle Shadow Visions because he'll have drawn the second Shadow Visions.
I agree that this game is pretty much over in Old Boy's favour. However, Gusenaj has given himself the best shot here because he should survive the following turn by playing Anduin.
However.
Yeah. Don't question it. It's a meme thing. I think. I don't really know anymore. My mind has been melted.
Your mind is memes.
Yeah.
It's definitely God Shuffle, and that's the pick here, isn't it?
It's not the most ridiculous thing you've ever said. It's an expensive hand. It's something you can just play onto the board.
I was being sarcastic, but sure, we can...
I know, it's worth considering though, right? Like, I don't know, you never lose this game anyway. Lich King, it's fine, but...
I mean, expensive
It doesn't really matter what you do at this point. You just throw cards onto the board.
Expensive stuff is fine. He's not ever going to be under any real pressure this game. The Lich King gets Death Coils, Death and Decays, other ways of winning the games, Frostmourne, whatever. Ukraine have finally managed to take the win on what was quite a long game, but I don't think it was ever there was ever really any question as to who's winning.
Yeah, it's, to be honest, unfortunate to see those games. Those are not my favourite games of Hearthstone to watch or to cast because Switzerland were just never really in it. Anduin bottom 3, they gave it their best chance. Like I said, I liked the way that they meted out their threats in that matchup because they had one very key turn where they could have gone for Psychic Scream on a pretty underwhelming board or gone for their combo of Twilight Acolyte into Cabal Shadow Priest. They went for the Psychic Scream even though the board wasn't particularly threatening, because they realized when they go for the the Twilight Acolyte Cabal Shadow Priest, it has to win the game right there. It didn't quite do that, but I think they gave themselves the best shot.
All right, game number 2 coming up next. It's going to be the Odd Warrior Mirror between Knights and Neyria. We would say we believe Switzerland's deck to be slightly favored against Ukraine's, as they do run Elise and Zola, and Neyria does not run Elise and Zola. Is it Zola as well that they don't run?
I believe they're still running Zola the Gorgon,
they are.
because that's just like a good card. You can still play it on Direhorn Hatchlings. It looks like they've gone for a pretty straight swap of what they've got. Abomination thrown in there instead of Elise. They've got double Faceless, yeah, which is a little bit interesting. Do they have one Giggling as well, or is that the other side? No, sorry, that's Switzerland. They have one Giggling. So it's a slightly interesting deck list. But basically, what we've been seeing here at the Global Games is in the matchups where it's fatigue-based Odd Warrior with all the shuffle cards thrown in, like at least double Direhorn, versus the more tempo variants, like the one we saw with double War Gear, double Beryllium Nullifier, the fatigue variants are winning. Pretty consistently. Although you do have the ability to tempo out threats, maybe you can get a Dr. Boom way earlier, maybe you can pull off an impressive Azalina. There are definitely pretty good chances for Ukraine to take this. I would, however, just put Switzerland in the lead because they have that extra 1 or 2 packs they can shuffle into their deck.
What's also interesting is the double faceless manipulator from Ukraine, because Switzerland aren't running any facelesses, which means, in theory, double faceless on Direhorn Hatchlings. That's 2 more cards thrown into fatigue.
That's true.
However, like you said, packs. Packs. We have seen Elise packs do some pretty incredible things over the last few weeks. Spirit Singer Umbras into more of the Death Rattle shuffle cards into your deck cards. Cards like Sudden Genesis, which can duplicate Direhorn Hatchlings. There's a lot that we have seen get pretty funky from these Elise packs.
Maybe, though, the fact that there's double faceless for Ukraine means that with double Direhorn, Elise, and double faceless, that's 5 cards they can potentially shuffle into their deck in 5 Matriarchs, potentially more with the Azalina Soul Thief. They can steal their opponent's hand as well. As it looks like, Switzerland will probably be shuffling 4 cards into their deck in 2 Matriarchs and 2 packs with Elise and Zola. So that is 1 more card shuffled in for Ukraine in the standard game plan. However, the standard game plan can often be thrown out the window because some pretty weird stuff can happen in this matchup, especially when Dr. Boom comes into play.
There's also double Stonehill Defender on both sides. They can lead to an extra Direhorn Hatchling, or they can just whiff.
So on both sides here, I imagine there's not much you're looking for in this matchup outside of Dr. Boom, considering pretty much every card will be found in this game over the course. There's no Geist, so you don't need to worry about keeping Omega Assembly to play as quickly as possible.
I agree. There are a lot of different schools of thought about Dr. Boom as well, like whether you do want to slam it as early as possible or whether you want to make the most of the tank up hero power. I'm pretty sure as time goes on, people are becoming more in sync about wanting to keep Dr. Boom.
I agree.
Slam it on 7, get those extra resources over the entire course of the game.
Because I think when we were talking about, when we were interviewing the Netherlands, was it, with one of the first Odd Warrior mirrors that we saw in the global games, and they were saying they're not even certain that you want to play Dr. Boom as quickly as possible. That was weeks ago. That was towards the start of Boomsday, when the matchup hadn't been figured out. And as you can clearly see here with Ukraine keeping Dr. Boom, I think the conclusion that's been come to is, yes, you gain a little bit less armor on average, perhaps quite a lot less. The rush that you get on all your mechs easily makes up for that difference because you're clearing the board so effectively every turn.
Azalina is certainly one of the most interesting cards in this matchup, though. I mean, present in both decks. If they both get drawn before one gets played, then it never goes away. And the game suddenly becomes expend as much value as quickly as possible to prevent your opponent from stealing it with their Azalina every turn. But personally, I'm a big fan of just slamming Azalina at the first possible moment in this matchup, whenever you're not discarding anything important. So if you have a handful of shield blocks, reckless flurries, brawls, or more importantly, a hand that doesn't contain any Direhorn Hatchlings, Soul of the Gorgons, or Releases, then you slam Azalina and hopefully get one of those key cards from your opponent.
I find, though, that in this matchup, there are very few useless cards, because even the ones that appear useless early on, like Brawl, Reckless Flurry, I agree, in the late stages of the game, they can be pretty important.
Sure.
If your opponent goes with a big Beryllium Nullifier, you have no answer to it at all unless you're Brawling or Reckless Flurrying, because you just can't target it.
Okay, so whereas Ukraine are running Double Faceless, one of the cards that Switzerland are running instead is Big Game Hunter.
The other one, I guess, Giggling is the straight swap out.
And then Abomination for Release. Okay, I think we found the differences.
Which is bad. Like, you do not want to be running BGH and Giggling when you can be running 2 Facelesses in this matchup. Because Faceless on a Direhorn is just the best thing you can do.
Then again,
pretty much.
You don't want to be running Abomination when you could be running Elise, really.
Yes, that's true as well. So neither deck particularly equipped for the mirror. I am not particularly equipped for the mirror either.
Double Owl in both decks. That's the reason Neria isn't just slamming down Direhorn Hatchling this turn. He doesn't want it to be silenced. Again, we can get back into that argument as to whether do you shield slam the Direhorn Hatchling the turn you play it, or is tempo too important? Because As ludicrous as it sounds to say that, yeah, in this matchup, tempo and board control can actually become quite important later on.
They can indeed. You often hear the adage thrown out in this matchup is that after you play Dr. Boom, you just vomit your hand as quick as possible.
Yeah.
You try and get chip damage in. You try not to play into MC tech, I suppose, as much as possible. But if you're keeping board and getting in that little bit of damage every turn, that makes a monumental difference once you get into fatigue.
As the first hatchling gets silenced for Ukraine, they only have one left.
Which means they're faceless, because obviously they can't go Direhorn double faceless on the same turn.
Yep.
If they want to get maximum shuffleage at this point, they would have to go double faceless on an opposing Direhorn hatchling, I guess.
Or one faceless on the opponents and one faceless on their own.
But they will have to find some way of doing it on more than just the remaining Direhorn, unless obviously it survives for a turn.
Because I guess the ideal scenario is that they can... so Switzerland play their Direhorn, they play faceless then Owl on their opponent's Direhorn.
Yep. And just to be clear, we are talking about finicky, weird little plays, because in the early turns, this matchup is very much not about early tempo and board control, so much as it is about maximizing your fatigue later on.
That being said, Neria does have a hold on the board.
That's not bad.
And it can be relevant. Knights shouldn't be able to deal with it too easily unless he wants to expend a brawl already. Super Collider doesn't really do the trick here because of that Stonehill Defender.
And you don't need to be particularly quick in this matchup, even with all this damage that's coming through to face. It's only 3 a turn after you counter with the hero power every turn in terms of actual damage coming through to your face. But I think setting up a Super Collider is a fine way to get things rolling. You have to miss 1 hero power, but the amount of damage you will hopefully be mitigating from the board should make up for that.
Is this an opening for me to talk about how great a card Super Collider is?
Go for it, my friend.
Super Collider is such a good card, Derek.
It is such a good card. 3 damage to the face for, what, 5 mana? I'm not winning a lot of games with Odd Warrior. I think I might be doing something wrong.
You're taking Hunter Ace's mistake last week a little bit too literally.
You just slam Captain Greenskin on that bad boy. Very spicy indeed. And there it is, probably the easiest turn in the game for Neria. He kept it in the opening hand because this is what he's going to do. He is going to play Dr. Boom and spam that big red button hero power.
Do you think that turn was even easier than last game's Coin Jaina on turn 8?
I think Coin Jaina was even easier because, I mean, Jaina is one of the few Death Knights where it's just a strict upgrade, right? Your hero power does the same thing, but better. Dr. Boom, especially when you're playing Odd Warrior, is not a straight upgrade. There are definite downsides, but the positives, I believe, outweigh the negatives, as I believe the pro player community is in agreement with. Especially as on this turn, we could have seen Furious Etin. Wouldn't it have been ridiculous to push your advantage there? But yeah, I think getting that value as much as possible is a fine way to go.
Also, just playing minions feels bad when there's a Super Collider on the board.
Yeah, that's fair.
Just generally. If you have more than 1 minion, you don't feel great about it. So Switzerland could hit the Super Collider into the Direhorn Hatchling, but it doesn't actually finish it off. Makes this turn pretty awkward.
Wow, they're actually considering the Reckless Flurry there just to use it early on while they're at a relatively low armor total.
Well, they could have used it with the 1 armor there just to finish off the Direhorn Hatchling.
As they play Super Collider. Oh, sorry, they play Ziliax, but do not attack. That is a very rare play.
Why? Okay, well that does leave Ukraine with the opening to just hero power and then trade. So I wonder why not attack.
I wondered too. I think that might have been a Romaruni.
That was an error. Error, error.
Yeah, that was an interesting one. I'm trying to think about it, like maybe they want to set up for a better Super Collider next turn, I imagine was their thinking, if so. Because having... I guess it means that Neria is less likely to Yeah, I was going to say that he can't develop another minion lest the Super Collider smack them into each other, but then Noria could have just attacked it into the Super Collider next turn, so I think that probably was just a missed attack.
It's kind of weird to me how Switzerland have seemed so behind this whole game. Like, they just don't have any efficient way of dealing with this abomination. I guess they could shield slam it away and play their hatchling out, but that doesn't seem so bad actually.
What now?
Hatchling Reckless Flurry to guarantee that the whole board dies.
I wouldn't even... Oh no, it would kill it off, right?
Yeah.
The Death Rattle.
Ah, I quite like that. Finding a niche little use of Reckless Flurry there. You did mention before though, and I think you're right, in that Reckless Flurry can be relevant later on.
Yeah, and this is the kind of play, well, we were talking about this exact style of play to the USA, weren't we, when they were playing in an Odd Warrior mirror?
Yeah.
Where I was saying, do you save back your brawls, your shield slams, your reckless flurries to kill off your own hatchlings? Because that seems good. You guarantee the death rattle, there's no silence counterplay, there's no faceless manipulator counterplay. They were saying, however, Frozen was saying, he thinks that the tempo of having the Direhorn on board and also the tempo of saving back your removal cards is too valuable.
Right.
You have to have that option for if your opponent goes wide on the board later on. Switzerland here clearly saying they would rather just get the guaranteed death rattle, deny Iron Beak Owl value, deny the faceless manipulator value, which is an interesting way of going about it.
Knight's second owl drawn. So if Noria does just decide to play the Direhorn Hatchling, then he won't get any shuffles. So I don't imagine that being the case.
And this Furious Etin is very annoying. Could this possibly force Switzerland to draw a card off of the Shield Slam?
Oh.
The last thing you want to do in this matchup. I think that's probably a little bit too eager to clear it off. You don't have to kill this right now. You can wait for Brawl value, you can wait for Shield Slam value later on. There is no answer to this right now though, which will get a bit annoying for Knights. It's a lot of damage chunking through.
We're seeing again what happens when Dr. Boom is drawn on one side and not drawn on the other side. It's just... Look at the armor total. Even though Knights has the tank up hero power, he has no armor and Neyria has 17. Switzerland can't coin out a Mega Assembly. It doesn't work that way. He has to have the 10 mana crystals pre-coin for it to get the 3 minions discovered. So he's just going to tank up and pass, it looks like.
And here you can see what this matchup really comes down to. The absolute complete and utter hesitance to draw even a single card. Because it is a fatigue matchup.
And that is the path in which Knights is actually winning on.
Yes.
He is winning the fatigue game. He doesn't want to have to give that up.
With one Direhorn already silenced and one of his own Direhorns safely killed off so that the Direhorn Matriarch is in the deck, he is decidedly ahead on fatigue.
He has Elise and Zola later on to help out with that.
With the potential to get either Raptor Hatchling or Direhorn Hatchling off of the pack, or Elise itself for another one as the 3 amigos, the best shuffly boys.
And the thing is, about this Furious Etin here, is that it's the only minion on the board and sort of can be the only minion on the board, because as soon as Neyria plays something else, the Super Collider hits the Etin, and the Etin deals with its friend. If Neyria even hero powers, suddenly Brawl becomes a good card.
Yeah.
If Neyria plays this Hatchling, then Owl Brawl looks very nice.
Yeah, if he's going to play this Hatchling, he has to play Zola as well. I agree. I think he would rather, if he could just make this 3 mana add a Direhorn to your hand, he'd almost prefer that because it's less likely that one of his good minions dies to Brawl. But again, with one being silenced already, and that being the only remaining shuffle card in his deck, this is a must play.
And again, it shows Neyria potentially would have had the option if he waited to play the Direhorn, put it back in the hand with Zola, and also deal with it on the same turn with a Shield Slam or a Reckless Flurry. But he's saying no, having control of the board is too important. This is how I win. I win by board control. He wins by fatigue.
And so now I wonder if Switzerland can deal with that second Direhorn hatchling as well, after obviously they silenced this first one. If they will simply not play their Direhorn for the rest of the game, unless they can guarantee it dying, because that means that the two Faceless Manipulators from Ukraine have no shuffle target. Copying at least the Trailblazer obviously does nothing, that's a battle cry.
Well, that Etin really is furious.
Yeah, it's chunking away for a fair old bit of damage.
Just winning brawls. What's he attacking with? Is that a tree?
I think it's a tree, yeah. Seems like it should do more than 5 damage. One of the times when the attack values in Hearthstone is a little bit off.
Yeah, if I was hit by a tree, I think it would deal me more than 5 damage.
You call an ambulance. Quick, get into a hospital quickly. This man's taken 5 damage points. Worth saying as well, though, Nyria has been getting blooming unlucky with these hero powers so far off the Dr. Boom. What has that been? 2 kabooms, which is undeniably the worst one. He got a summon microbots last turn, which also is probably the second worst one. No discover, no armor up.
Kaboom is probably Dr. Boom's favorite, to be fair.
Probably. I feel like this matchup is a little bit too cerebral for Dr. Boom, though. No offense.
Putting the Faithful Lumi in the middle there, so the Super Collider isn't looking like it's going to do that much. And Knight has used a Reckless Flurry, he's used a Brawl, he's actually running out of these board clears, and Nyria is presenting awkward board after awkward board. He's sort of saying, yeah, you kind of want to clear this, but also can't.
So what Switzerland want to do, obviously, is protect their armor total for a turn, for where they can then go hero power again up to 8, shield slam, and attack in. Or I guess attack in so the Super Collider works, then shield slam. But through very nice Lumi positioning here for Ukraine, they're still very invulnerable to any kind of board clear. Unless it wants to be another brawl for Knight. That doesn't feel good. They could go for the Explodinator into Brawl, because that means they're not wasting taunts off of the Giggling Inventor, which is obviously a very good card. They could just go Giggling Inventor straight up to try and protect their health total.
Wow, gonna go wide. And there's definitely a benefit to this. Nyria doesn't exactly want to be playing a board clear this turn anyway, so if you're ever going to go wide on the board, I guess this is the turn. And hey, Beryllium Nullifier may actually find a target next turn.
You are somewhat playing into the mind control tech, obviously, but I guess if you are going to do so, do it with the worst minions you can. And these are very underwhelming minions, each in their own right.
Have you ever seen Goblin Bomb put into a deck, just naturally?
Yeah, I have actually.
Ah.
It's been rubbish every time.
Okay.
I think Nostum was playing it when I was watching him stream a while ago, and while most of his decks are decent, that was not a good one. I think it was Bomb Hunter or something.
Ah. I've seen some weird Savage Royal Druid decks that run these cards as well.
Oh yeah, that's right. That was Pheno's Druid for a while, where for some reason on Twitter he was saying Explodinator kind of token Druid was the new thing, but it was just bad. Like, it was just, no offense, Pheno, really bad.
There's some very small minion combat happening here. But there you go. Switzerland down to 15 health already. Could Nyria be setting up for a very early lethal?
And this is what we were talking about at the start, is once you get that damage once you get that Dr. Boom down, you just turn up the heat. You play your biggest thing you can every turn, and you start hitting your opponent, because Nyria has done an amazing job of realizing what is Odd Warrior's weaknesses, and that is basically a few medium-sized minions.
And hey, when you roll Kaboom every single turn from Dr. Boom's hero power, then you can deal some serious damage.
Has it really gone Kaboom, something else, Kaboom, something else, Kaboom?
Yeah, I think so.
Wow. So the Furious Etin finally
Loses the brawl.
Yeah, jeez.
But that's 4, 5 damage with the Kaboom, 6 with the Super Collider, which won't be going face, just to be clear.
I don't know, man. That's 3 damage to face. Or I guess 2 now. I do know. You don't attack face with a Super Collider. But this does mean, at the very least, that Ukraine, if they don't find lethal soon, which is still not probably going to be happening, they've set themselves up to be in a great point in fatigue.
Yep.
Because not only have they lowered the armor total so aggressively of Switzerland, they've also made a situation where they've used a bunch of their resources. 2 brawls have been used, a Reckless Flurry has been used, 1 Super Collider has basically been worn out. Knights' removal is basically gone.
I can't believe I'm saying this, Darren, but I really don't think this game is going to go to fatigue. Naria has
My goodness.
both owls in his hand, so if Knights just puts up a taunt, he gets silenced, he goes face.
Could
Knights,
this be a sub 1 hour Odd Warrior mirror?
I think we could get production to confirm this, but yeah, I don't think this game is going on for possibly even more like a 30-minute game of Odd Warrior Mirror.
Wow, breezed by. Obviously still a fair amount of counterplay now for Switzerland, as they can just taunt up on the board, I suppose, with Stonehill. Still, that Super Collider is not getting the job done. Naria is setting up very nicely for that once again. Let's see what...
Oh, they are some good... Well, not the Alarma bot, but the other mechs.
Yeah, Beryllium and Ziliax are very nice indeed.
And Knights can just start piling up these Beryllium nullifiers if he wants to. I guess he starts with a mech that doesn't have magnetic and then stick the big things on top. Though getting anything to stick to the board is going to be a little bit tough here.
Ow. So this is another 6 damage that's going to be piling through to face. 7 off lethal, I believe, with the swing of the Super Collider.
If Stonehill Defender gets like a Ziliax, that's 3 more damage this turn if Naria wanted it.
Is it?
Yeah, because Ziliax with magnetic onto...
Oh, magnetic. Yeah, sorry, I was thinking of Rush, not the old Charger, really.
Out of my jungle!
God, you always forget that Ziliax actually has magnetic until it happens to you, and then you realize, oh my god, that is busted.
Even more powerful than I thought it was.
Yeah. These are not premium options.
No.
You would very happily take another Furious Etin over the Tar Lord for its offensive capabilities.
Although, okay, Knights has used up quite a few of his board clears, right?
Yeah.
So Phantom Militia's probably not looking that bad.
Yeah, it means you have to choose a turn where you're happy to forego the hero power unless you're just playing 2 of them.
Oh, I love that
Like,
thing.
Knights has played both Brawls and a Reckless Flurry.
I wonder if you just go Tar Lord so you can slam it down this turn. That's a very aggressive play to forego the hero power, especially when it's only actually 1 attack on the board.
All right.
But I think I like it.
Just going to keep making the most aggressive play possible.
Because the alternatives are, maybe they clear the board this turn somehow, even though that seems very unlikely, and then you represent 6 damage on the board, which is, fine. But considering you've seen both Brawls and 1 Reckless Flurry, why not just turn up the heat now? Force them to respond.
Naria didn't roll Kaboom, Derek.
Wow.
He got another
It's a miracle.
outcome.
Has he had Delivery Drone once yet,
I don't
though?
think so.
The good one.
No, I didn't.
Or Zap, which would also, or Zap Cannon, which also would have been great to just start shooting his opponent.
You'd probably have won the game by now if
If
you'd running
he got
Zap
that
Cannon
3
as often
times,
as it did
yeah.
running Kaboom.
I would have to imagine, however, that Ziliax is going to be looking mighty juicy.
Oh, man. Okay, well, we were saying that Naria is getting close to lethal, but as soon as Ziliax buffs up this Brilliant Nullifier, it's going to be healing for at least 10. There we
He's
go.
going to be silenced away, though.
Yeah.
So only healing up for 6
6,
actually right now.
No, I'm Mikhail, pretty good. Security Rover can go in, and then the minion with taunt that it generates can deal with the... Actually, there's no board
You've got to
space.
clear some board space. I think you just probably attack in with the
Micro bots.
1/1s, I guess. Yeah.
He can't afford to hit him with the Super Collider yet, because then the lifesteal on the Brilliant Nullifier would actually go off.
How many? Oh yeah, there are a few mechs. I was wondering if you could guarantee the Dynamatic to kill off the Stonehill, but
This would be a good time for a master plan.
I imagine in some capacity, Iron Beak Owl has to be considered here. It's not a definite play necessarily, because you want to save those for the Diehorn Hatchlings. Oh no, wait, but both Diehorn Hatchlings have been played for Knights, haven't they? It's just the one from Stonehill Defender left. So yeah, I think the Owl will definitely be coming down here on the Beryllium Nullifier.
I think even if there were another Diehorn Hatchling,
Even then,
Ukraine
yeah.
is so close to
Yeah,
just
yeah.
winning the game through damage.
And Beryllium Nullifier is the scariest thing you can face.
Yeah.
You always want to be killing that off.
New thing.
Getting as much of this damage as possible to go face as well. They could have gone Super Collider that turn, but they wanted to get that hero power in, so all of these minions that are ready to attack, that don't have rush, could just get that damage through to face.
Beryllium Nullifier number 2 can come down and untargetable the first Beryllium Nullifier, but there's no Ziliax anymore, so no more lifesteal. But there is somewhere in the deck. I believe that Ziliax actually came from the Mega Assembly.
Mind Control Tech is a very welcome addition for Switzerland here.
What's he looking for if he just plays it? Is he looking for Security Rover, I guess?
Yep, Security Rover's fine, Tar Lord's good. Even the Stonehill.
Yeah, anything with Taunt, basically.
Yep. Obviously, they would not have Rush for Knights because he hasn't played Dr. Boom, so Security Rover is a little bit slow. We could even see Mind Control Tech, Zola Mind Control Tech, although I don't anticipate that.
Engaging TC-130 into dislocator.
That's the bad one. Kind of ironic that Faithful Lumi swapped over to the other side.
We can make a list like top 5 ironic Mind Control Tech targets. Faithful Lumi, Mind Control Tech himself.
Top 5 anime betrayals, Faithful Lumi to the other side.
$12 damage, 13
Whoa.
damage with the Super Collider available this turn.
But if you Ziliax the Security Rover, it won't be damaged, so it won't summon an extra
That's right.
guy, which is a little bit annoying.
So I'm looking at Ziliax, Owl, Ping Face. The Owl silences the Diehorn Hatchling, so then all of the damage, the 2, 4, 5, 6 on the board, the 3 from the Hero Power, that's 9, 10 for the Super Collider, 11, 12, 13 with the Ziliax.
No way!
All goes face.
Oh.
13 damage.
So you get them down to 2 health.
That's crazy.
And you get a good silence target as well. You want to be silencing that Diehorn anyway. I think that just happens always, no matter what you're going for.
Yeah.
This is an odd warrior game that I can get down.
Okay, sure. Losing 1 damage on the face to deal with 2 minions on the board, that seems like a pretty good trade-off there.
Depends on how smork you are. You have to be a pretty smorky player to get that 1 damage through to face.
You have to be a pretty smoky player to play Odd Warrior by the looks of things.
We're seeing this more and more, aren't we?
Yeah.
Players just switching over to a more aggressive style. I believe Gallon tweeted out today, somewhat ironically, a tempo Odd Warrior list. Maybe he thinks it's a real deck.
Did it run Frothing Berserkers, Derek?
I can't remember. I would imagine so. It had like the war gears and stuff in there.
Ah.
Well,
Well,
now for Knights, still in a situation where he is just dead, straight up, no real answer to what's on board.
he has 1 taunt, and it's the damaged Stegodon.
I don't think he gets out of this one.
He's going to have to play that shield block. And that's all there is to it.
And even if all Ukraine get out of this massive offensive is they make their opponents draw a card,
Great.
that would be a pretty big victory for them. They probably just win, which would be a massive victory for them.
They needed the second Reckless Flurry there, because then they could trade Shield Slam, Reckless Flurry to clear everything.
There.
Leaving them with 4 health.
Choose.
8 damage remains on the board now for Ukraine, including the Super Collider attack. Ah, okay.
Yeah,
Now
I wouldn't,
7 damage.
would not have liked the Alarm Bot at all there. I wouldn't have minded Zola on the Diehorn Hatchling there, because that obviously gives you another taunt for the following turn. Might have quite liked that, actually.
Okay, Knights is really struggling to deal with the big stuff, so yeah. Let's just slam Baku.
More big stuff.
Could gain 7 armor, could slam Baku.
Yeah.
I like the idea of slamming back.
Push your advantage. Your advantage is not necessarily fatigue in this matchup. It's the fact that you have got Dr. Boom early and you are smoking your opponent down. They do not have an answer to this. Well,
They have big game.
they do have big game hunter, but from where Ukraine is sitting,
Yeah.
there has not been an answer to these big minions.
Kaboom!
That's 1 damage to the face.
Yeah. Not great when the opponent's healing for 4 every turn.
Yeah, and it appears that maybe Knights has started to stabilize somewhat, because with the big game hunter now, the Super Collider, I suppose, this could be a full board clear and an armor up. Finally, for the first time in the game, Swiss fans rejoice. Knights has got bored. And this whole game plan for Ukraine of playing aggressive, getting the damage through to face, doesn't go back to Dr. Boom. It goes back even further. It goes back to the Direhorn Hatchling they played on 5.
Yeah.
The Stonehill that they played on turn 3 to
Yeah.
get the Furious Etin. They have been playing aggressively for board right from the start, and it has paid unbelievable dividends.
So Kaboom is an option here, which would deal with the ooze and deal the 1 damage to the face. Playing Dynamatic and playing Direhorn Hatchling is another option. Super
Dynamatic.
Collider.
Very tempting.
Super Collider doesn't actually deal with either of the minions.
This would be a
I
good
think I
time
like
for a
just slamming both
master
5-drops.
plan.
You really want to save that Faceless Manipulator for the Direhorn, because this could very possibly still go through to fatigue.
Yep. So is playing out the second Direhorn too risky?
It's a really good play onto the board, though. It's not particularly weak to the Super Collider on its own. But it looks like they're considering going for Direhorn Faceless on this turn. That whole board gets cleared up then.
And Dynamatic into Direhorn Hatchling is looking so strong. There's just no answer for it.
Yeah.
This would be a good time for a master plan.
This is an immensely difficult turn for Ukraine.
No, wait.
And this is showing a big shift in game plan. Quite, I would say quite a mature and decided or considered decision here for Nyria, where he's saying, you know what, although we've pushed our advantage here, you know, it's fun that we've got them down this low. There's no guarantee we get there anymore. This is not a definite victory if we push for damage to face here. If they can start armoring up every turn and we lose board control, it doesn't matter that they're at full health. They will armor up every turn to secure a victory, or at least to pull themselves back into the game.
I was going to say that the Dynamatic was a very good draw there because it means that the Super Collider isn't necessary in clearing the board. They can remove 7 damage from these minions, leaving just 5 health, and Dynamatic would finish the job. However, again, it doesn't matter that they're at 3 health, because like you said, Switzerland can just keep tanking up and get themselves closer and closer to that fatigue win.
And they can instead go at least Zola on this turn, which I like a lot.
This jungle hides many secrets.
They got to tank up because Zap Cannon will just kill them.
Yep, and they know that they have to tank up here. Not a question. This may sound like a stupid question, but it's not quite as stupid as it sounds.
Okay.
Is Ukraine running Leroy? They are not. We have seen Odd Warriors with Leroy here at the Global Games.
Have we?
Yeah, I can't remember which team it was. There has definitely been a Leroy and Odd Warrior.
No way.
There has. We'll have to find the deck list because I can't remember exactly who it was. I am 100% certain there has been a Leroy in Odd Warrior.
I remember the Frothing Berserker, the Leroy?
Yeah. Or maybe it wasn't in Global Games. It was in something. Some tournament recently. I have seen Leroy and Odd Warrior. I agree it sounds ridiculous, and it probably is ridiculous, but it's been out there.
First pack drawn already.
Oh, there we go. I believe we got a message from production. Bulgaria, I think, we're running
Really?
Leroy in their Odd Warrior, which, I mean, proof's in the pudding. They're through to BlizzCon. Leroy is strictly correct.
If you're
Odd
watching,
Warrior.
go build an Odd Warrior, put Leroy in it, hit us up when you're rank 1 legend.
Or rank 50. Oh, no, wait, you can't fall down to rank 50, can you? Doesn't even exist yet. So, Knights, I am...
Is this a good pack turn?
It's not a bad pack turn. I mean, I'm mostly looking at Direhorn Elise.
Just the most powerful player on the board.
Yeah. I suppose you're weak to Shield Slam then, because you have seen double Owls, which is the biggest of your worries. But I guess they are so afraid of the shield slam that they're saying, you know what, we just want to preserve our armor total most heavily at this point. This is the most valuable thing to us.
How have we not seen either Azalina yet?
It does mean they could just pull Elise from their hand, though.
Right. That's true.
An acceptable risk from where they're sat, I guess.
But like also leaving Elise in the hand means if Neyria did draw Azalina, they could just play it and guarantee that they get the Elise from the opponent's hand. I don't know how I feel about holding on to that Elise, and I don't know how I feel about playing the Alarma bot. Both of those seem a little bit dodgy.
Neyria knows that there is an Elise in hand because it was Zola'd back to the hand.
Exactly.
So he could just very happily say, okay, have your Alarma
Okay,
bot, have your
then.
fun. Maybe you just miss out on a pack.
There's all sorts that could have gone wrong with that play.
I mean, obviously, if it gets damaged Stegatron, then you have, what, like a 512, is it? Whatever the stats are on that minion, because it doesn't damage itself at that point.
Yeah, Neyria, see the line, leaving it alive.
Here it is, a 1 out of 4 for a terrible outcome for Knight.
Oh, no!
My god. And you can just tell it was someone's idea on that team, very possibly Knights as the pilot, to say, we're playing the Alarma bot. We're in a bad spot. We need to fight for tempo very aggressively here. And now his teammates, or whoever it was, someone is going to be sat there very unhappy that the Alarma bot was played.
What now?
I don't know. Just not playing Elise that turn seemed so bad.
Yeah.
Again, the Azalina risk was real too. Oh, hello, Lyra.
Oh!
Hello, Explorer.
Goro! Poggers.
And that's it. He's played all of his shuffle cards, right? So now Explorer Goro's good. Oh, he'd lose Dr. Boom.
Drawn the pack, obviously, because he just played it. The other Lyra's in the other... Oh, sorry, the other Elise will not be shuffling a pack.
He doesn't...
I guess after he's found Dr. Boom.
Yeah.
Because it's not ridiculous. Like, Explorer Goro is often a bit of a meme when you get it off of the pack as to whether it's actually played. Wouldn't be that bad at all.
Every turn, it could give you a Diehorn Hatchling.
Oh, yes. Oh. Whew. It could give you... Oh, no, wait, sorry. I was going to say something really stupid.
Okay.
I was going to say give you Archbishop Benedict
No.
before I realized it's only warrior cards.
Yeah.
Dang
This
it!
would be a good time for a master plan.
Discover 101.
It could give you weaponized Pinata
Ooh.
into Rin or into Archbishop Benedictus. That's the line. Or it could give you weaponized Pinata into Toki Time
Okay,
Tinkerer,
then.
into Nat Darkfisher to draw your opponent a bunch of cards.
Let your imagination run wild.
Yeah, it's unlikely to happen, to be fair.
As Neyria just find another opportunity to push 2 damage to the face.
Getting that chip damage in there. Fatigue does approach, not for a little while, but it's a consideration at least.
If he draws Azalina next turn, we could see Explorer Goro on both sides.
Ooh.
Oh, we could see Explorer Goro right now, actually.
It's got to be Dr. Boom first.
Yeah, yeah.
You maybe press the hero power first. I guess the armor is the most valuable thing for Switzerland. 1 out of 5 times they are straight up very sad that they missed out on 3 armor. But the rest of the time, there's not much that would be good because they don't want to discover a mech when they have a full hand, really.
They could play Dr. Boom and Alarma Bot again, because that worked out great the first time.
And have a rushing Alarma bot, my goodness.
To be fair, if Alarma Bot did pull out that Lyra for 0 mana, the Knights would have a full turn to play some priest cards.
I would imagine that Neyria will be a little bit more hesitant to be killing off the Alarma bot. Or to leaving it up, sorry.
All right.
Oh, I love that
I very possibly will see the button just being pressed and saying, you know what, we burn a card. The average mech we can discover.
No
is
way.
Here it comes again, that little guy. And outside of a Reckless Flurry, there is no way of killing it off because it would not damage or a brawl.
Discover a
You
mech,
can- yeah,
any mech can
Discover
rush it.
anything
Yeah.
you can deal with it, I suppose. Unless you get a Llama Bot. No, there's no. A Llama Bot Mechathune Bulldozer. That would be 3 unattackable minions on this turn.
Well
to
done.
Mana cost and attack.
Good job, Derek. You found it.
Go me.
This is where the mind games really begin. Neyria takes his Alarma Bot, slams that onto the board. Be afraid,
Just says,
Switzerland.
if I'm willing to do that to myself, just think what I'm willing to do to you. Yeah, Security Rover does make a good amount of sense.
Security Rover is a really annoying card, and I mean that in the good way. It's just very good at preventing your opponent from going face ever.
Naria does decide to put an end to the fun here for Switzerland. There will be no 0-mana Lyras, no giant Beryllium Nullifiers coming out for free.
Oh, another difference between the decks that I hadn't noticed before.
Another one copy of Whirlwind, a very unfashionable inclusion now, since King Mosh has pretty much left every odd warrior that you see nowadays.
Well, it appears occasionally to counter Token Druid, although most players have now decided that Abomination is the better card to put into the deck to counter Token Druid.
Yep.
That Whirlwind, though, could have been Discover a card if the Exploring Gara had been played. Then again, Whirlwind after Lyra. It's 1 mana for a random pre-spell. All of the Discover a card cards after Lyra are 1 mana pre-spells. There's definitely some interesting synergy here.
That's true. Oh, imagine if you went Explorer Goro into Dead Man's Hand. That's the dream.
Oh my!
That's the dream.
It's time to start going for it, I guess.
Yeah, whatever you're doing, you do it now. And it turns out that what Knights is doing is playing a 9-mana 5/5 taunt. Break yourself upon my body, he says, to which Nyria replies, fine.
Yeah, 3 microbots will deal with that one.
Did anyone give Osrook a non-terrible review in card reveals? Because I'm trying to remember back to the...
What, just so you can laugh at them?
Well, no, I'm just wondering like if everyone was on the ball, or if everyone realised that it was not a good card. Because people were saying that mechs... Oh, sorry, that elemental decks were going to be the new big thing.
Yeah.
Because obviously Dragon decks before that were so powerful with Black Ring Corruptor and that stuff with that rotating out in that expansion.
In theory, all it takes is like a Firefly for Osrock to be a 5/15. You can definitely see how it may have been considered a good card.
In the right scenario, I'm sure it's nuts. In this scenario, however, it's pretty bloomin' bad. That chip damage still coming through, 2 at a time for Neyria, keeping Knights at a much more manageable health total for when fatigue does inevitably set in. And also saying, you've played both brawls.
Yep.
You do not have an answer to this now.
And Knight says, yep, here's the other Reckless Flurry. Although he can't really, because then he only has 3 health, and Ukraine have the Zap Cannon.
Okay, so that's out. So let's rule out that option.
He literally can't play the Reckless Flurry. Ah.
He can, but it would be a bad idea. Also, there'd be 2/3 left on the board as well.
Dynamatic doesn't have a great chance at dealing with anything because of the... Actually, it might deal with use.
You got Tolvir, I suppose, as a decent way to stall the board with a Divine Shield Tortorino.
Hero Power unplayable because of the Security Rover?
Yeah, pretty much completely useless. If we were to see Dynamatic, that doesn't clear the board. Sorry, doesn't clear off both non-mechs.
Light the fuses!
Fortunate.
That's not what you want to see.
Oh, I love that.
Oh no, sorry, Dynamatic could have done that with the Rush as well, I guess. So yeah, another Dynamatic.
Okay.
Yeah, this makes sense.
Actually, that did work out pretty nicely.
Not bad at all for Knights, but still, the pressure available to still come forward quite heavily for Neria. We could see attack in to make a 2/3, play the Direhorn Matriarch Hero Power face.
You know, Derek, I wouldn't be surprised if we just see 5 damage going face here again. Like, Knights, his health total's really low. He doesn't have a way to gain armor every turn anymore.
Time for a master plan.
That's a fair point.
Just, like, attack face, hero power face, play the Matriarch.
Not bad.
This would be a good time for a master plan.
But I have to be honest, I think from Knights, I'm expecting more and more for that Explore Ungoro to be played just on the last few cards. What have they even got left for them? Do they have a Stonehill? The Azalina, I guess, is what they're hoping
Both
for.
players have got Azalina still
Yeah.
somewhere in their deck. How has this happened?
Dislocate her.
I think one mind control tech has been found for Switzerland already. And if they do draw and play Azalina, they definitely don't want to play it because they know for a fact that their hand is very likely better than their opponent's.
Shield Slam was a great draw though, and here we go, it's Lyra time. I've actually been really excited about this. Okay, Vivid Nightmare, and then...
Whirlwind to kill off your own Lyra and make another minion for your opponent?
Yeah, maybe not. Stop me in my tracks there.
Is it time?
It's got to be time.
Let's go on a trip.
Where?
Ungoro! It's time to explore.
That sounds great. Can I have a priest card too?
You may. Well, no, you can't, but Knights can.
Oh. Embrace Darkness is reasonable. It's quite slow, but in this matchup it's probably fine.
Fairly underwhelming for the moment, but still, Knights is going to have all his fingers and toes crossed, I would imagine. It might make it a little bit difficult to play Hearthstone, but it might get him a dead man's hand off of one of those Explore Ungoros.
There's 4 chances.
Or what's the actual token card called? Is it Choose Your Path?
Choose your path, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it, well done. So yeah, with the token generated from the security rover, Lyra does get dealt with. And here we go.
Straight up, discover a card. Let's have a look. Let's have a look.
Oh my god, if he gets Dead Man's Hand.
Oh, I guess you go for the drone.
Really?
Wouldn't have made any difference,
I'd
right?
go with the cheaper card first.
You might get something that you just want to play right now for tempo.
Sure.
Like a... What is there on the 8-cost slot? There's like nothing, right? Beryllium Nullify would have been the best option anyway. I guess you still don't have to play it because we could see...
The weapon and the Tolvir Stone Shape.
Yeah, you still have mana to fit it in. I just want to see what it is, man.
Tolvir plus Vivid Nightmare might be reasonable, actually.
Oh,
Get 2 3 attack minions with Divine Shield. Yeah, one only has 1 health, but... Fucking Berserker, huh? It's not the best, but...
It's not the best, no. This one was a little bit of a dud. It's Cauldron Elemental. For the first time in history, seems competitive Hearthstone play. I did actually get that played against me on ladder for the first time the other day. In an even Shaman.
Was it strong?
Oh, I won by miles. It was awful. Whoa,
But look at
nice
that.
little play being made here by Switzerland. A very respectable board coming out of it.
I didn't quite get that extra attack in.
Yeah, I wonder if that was on purpose or accidental.
Okay, well this Azalina gets played, right? Just Shield Slam first and then play it? Oh. Like, Naria's hand has just been sitting there for the whole game now.
It hasn't done anything. But what if your opponent just, I don't know, plays Tyrantus off of the pack? Or,
for a master plan.
I don't even know, what other big warrior minions are there?
Rot face.
I guess, well, I was going to say, you want to have an answer to that, but if you have your own versions of those minions, you can probably just fight card for card. I would imagine that Ukraine is going to be a little bit disappointed when they see what is found here. But they're going for it. They realize these removal cards, while they have their utility, it's not really what you want. You just want threats. We do, I think, thankfully get to avoid a game where Azalinas are played infinitely because both have an Azalina in hand.
Unfortunately, Ukraine didn't get to steal an Explore Ungoro or Lyra, though. Like, that Azalina came, I guess, 1 turn too late to actually get the really good stuff.
That's interesting. I thought Azalina was supposed to give reduced mana cost on cards now, yet Obsidian Shard is at a full 4 mana.
Yeah, but Obsidian Shard is a little bit different because it's like Cthulhu, right? It's based on your own actions. It's how many other class cards you've played, not your opponent's played. It's very interesting, but that one actually makes sense to me, yeah.
I would definitely not have predicted it to work that way. That's very interesting.
This would be a good time for a master plan.
Makes sense, though, I guess. And here we go. Let's go for another choose your path. See what's in the box this time. What a load of trash. What is this? You got two dinosaurs and a crocodile, which, let's be honest, is a dinosaur's lame cousin.
If we're exploring Ngora, Derek, this is what we're finding.
It makes sense, I guess.
But there's no dead man's hand there.
No dead man's hand, indeed. And although we're memeing about Dead Man's Hand as the obviously absolute primo best option, any kind of big minion would be fine.
Or any shuffle, again, like Direhorn.
Obviously, any shuffle would be insane. Direhorn or Elise would just be nuts.
It is discover a card, right? Not
It's just a card.
minion.
Just
okay.
discover a card.
This would be a good time for a master plan.
Obviously, that's weighted more heavily towards warrior cards. In fact, a lot of good that did him on the last discover.
Cauldron Elemental on the board now. Knights is going to need to deal with that because this health total is still a little bit lacking.
Almost out of cards, says Knights, as he is one card behind in the fatigue race. Or one card ahead. He's in the bad spot.
Come on, Knights. Let's see it.
Well, we could just see Cauldron Elemental ping, actually, I think, on this turn and forego the choose your path.
Ukraine must still have a Faceless Manipulator in their deck as well, which, if used on that Security Rover, would be pretty powerful.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, used on a Cauldron Elemental would be pretty powerful as well.
True. I'm just thinking like Faceless on the 5/7 Security Rover, then play their own Beryllium Nullifier on top of it.
Oh.
The Battle of the Cauldron Elementals.
Oh, I love that fuse thing. Fire, burn, and cauldron.
Even in the first time I've seen it played in a tournament setting, it's just an 8-mana 7/7. Like, it's not good at all.
Ooh, I'm almost out of cards.
Oh! I didn't realize Neria still had one of those knocking around.
Leaving up the 5/7 does set up for Super Collider stuff, maybe? I guess Knights knows, though, the hand for Neria pretty much exactly because of it was copied by Azalina.
Oh,
So it would have to be Faceless plus Super Collider,
Oh, that would be absurd.
which would be very, very good. Well, it would be all right. You could attack in, sacrifice the 2/3. Yeah, it would be pretty good. You could keep it alive by attacking into the opposing 5/7, but then that would summon another 2/3. It gets pretty complicated.
Okay, then.
What's interesting is that Ukraine has the time to play Embrace the Darkness on one of his turns because he has so much health, whereas Knights, if he's facing down a big threat, just wouldn't really have the time to sit around and wait for the minion to switch sides.
Fuse thing.
All just a little bit short on mana here is Neria, with no ability to go for the Security Rover nonsense, what he wants to do. But now...
It's an awkward board, isn't it? See that quick change of plan there?
Did he mess that up?
I think he had intended to hit the 1-mana mech into the
He should have done that first, into the Cauldron Elemental, right? And
Yes.
he could have killed it off.
Yes,
I
that's
think
right.
that was just a big mess up from Ukraine.
a big fat mess up.
Because then a 7/1 wouldn't have been on board. And now with
Yeah, you can see Neria's face. He's not, well, you can
Yeah.
sort of see his face.
you can see his chin, and that is one sad chin if ever I've seen one. So, hero power for the Kaboom to take off the Divine Shield. No mechs in hand. You can get the damage to go to face by equipping the Obsidian Shard, I suppose. But starting off with the Choose Your Path seems a good way to get going. As
Mega Defender's
another
great.
Explore Ungoro.
4-mana, 12/6? Yes,
Yeah,
please.
It's better than 2 mana do nothing, I guess. Not the 2 mana warrior spell that you're looking for there. As there is one more chance for a premium option on Choose Your Path for Knights.
And otherwise, it's just going to be the biggest thing Knights can possibly take.
Yep. Oh, okay.
Wow. Just for an extra taunt. Or a way to deal with the minion shot.
Yeah, I guess using the Obsidian Shard would have just been a little bit too much damage that you're tanking.
I'm out of cards.
Because every point of health is so important for Switzerland now. And, you know, while it's come down to this point where we've been having a lot of fun with the choose your path cards off of Explore on Goro, hoping for maybe something that could save Switzerland, the operative word there is save. Switzerland needs something to pull them out of it, or they are just losing this game.
Neria has all sorts that he can do. He's got Eternian Rover into Brilliant Nullifier, he's got that hero power. That Tolvir Warden doesn't stand a chance against everything Neria has in his hands. And if Neria can get a big minion to stick, he can go ahead and faceless it and get a second one.
And this is just paying, putting more credence to the idea or the way to play this matchup, which is you play aggressive. After you've got Dr. Boom down, you just play your biggest thing you can every turn, start hitting them for a lot of damage, try to make their super colliders as awkward as you possibly can. And it's worked out great for Ukraine. They have just stomped their opponent here.
Magic neutralized.
And that very large Eternium Rover now needs to find an answer if it's not just Reckless Flurry, which would pretty much end the game.
Oh, another 2-mana warrior spell, but not the one.
Those aren't bad cards, to be honest. Brawl, you know, you could just use it here to win the 50-50, but I think Switzerland here are probably realizing this is going to be lights out fairly soon.
I like this turn a lot, though.
Yes, yeah.
With the tank up back onto 11 health, Omega Defender comes down. If the Omega Defender sticks, which is somewhat likely, Bone Mare it up, it would become, what, a 16-10? And then it gets faceless.
So Omega Defender, I'm not going to make this mistake again, is not a mech. It's just a goblin in a mech suit.
Hey, Embrace Darkness is looking pretty fine here, isn't it? Because Ukraine can afford to take the damage once. Can faceless it?
Yeah, that's true. Oh, it's very slow.
Time for a master plan.
The alternatives being
Just faceless.
unpowered Steambot can't attack unless you played a spell, none of which you really want to play.
Equip the weapon, hit the weapon into the Omega Defender and ping it.
Give it a Zappo. Yeah, that's not bad. You could then play the unpowered Steambot on this turn as well.
This would be a good time for a master plan.
You do want to get facelessing that guy though, because that's a good old faceless target. Faceless obviously doesn't reduce the cost of Obsidian Shard.
Oh, I love that fuse thing.
An awkward turn. Ukraine's still obviously miles ahead. They just need to not mess this up massively and they should be just fine. Okay, yeah. No, this is quite cute.
I've never heard that sound of that card being played before.
What battery?
Battery empty.
I've got to be honest, I thought it was you saying that after this odd worry.
Not battery empty.
Yeah.
My batteries never run out, Derek.
The Duracell of casters. Other battery brands are available. Other casters are available.
No, they're not.
And there we go. After what we thought might be a little bit of a quicker Odd Warrior game, still ends up going all the way. But Neria, after some very beautiful, aggressive, smorktastic play, gets himself in a position where the removal had to be used so aggressively by Knights that when the end game came, there was just no answer to all those minions after minions after minions. Threat, 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 threat. Early Dr. Boom got it done, and it was just very nicely done by Neria.
Yeah, that was actually a very entertaining Odd Warrior game to watch. It was a little bit different to some of the other ones that we've seen recently, but I believe that we are due a short little break there to go to the toilet. But when we come back, the next game is going to be Aggro Mage for Switzerland versus Token Druid for Ukraine. Will Ukraine get the full sweep? It's looking possible. We'll find out soon. So next up, we have the Rabbin on Aggro Mage. And I've got an interesting little story about the Rabbin here. Yes, Switzerland are currently 0-2 down. But you know what? They've still got confidence. I messaged the Rabbin this morning. First time I'd ever spoken to the guy. Said, how are you feeling about your match against Ukraine? And he replied, we feel confident. We'll crush them. They're nothing.
Wow, that's pretty brutal.
And apparently that was a quote from Hypno, who was half asleep at the time.
Oh, so even in his sleep, he just mumbles sweet nothings about how the fact he is going to just ruin this whole man's career in terms of Ukraine's game plan.
They got some tough games ahead of them, though. Aggro Mage versus Token Druid is probably looking a little bit Token Druid favoured.
Yep.
The Druids have all of the armor gain in the world. And yes, while Aggro Mage can still do the Aggro Mage thing as Mana Worms on one, etc., it's going to be tough. After that, though, we're talking Death Idol Hunter for Switzerland versus Shadowwalk Shaman for Ukraine. That should be Switzerland favoured. And then Token Druid for Switzerland versus Death Idol Hunter for Ukraine. That should also be Switzerland favoured. So this is the big hurdle that Switzerland need to get over.
Yeah, this is the most important match for them, not just in terms of this series, probably in their global games career so far, because if they lose this game, they're out. They are leaving the Hearthstone Global Games, and Ukraine will be fighting on into the next match against either Norway or China, depending on who loses that series.
I mean, no, don't mean to apply too much pressure here, but probably the biggest game in their Hearthstone career throughout, not just global games. This is a big tournament. These guys aren't the most well-known players. I doubt they've competed in anything bigger than this.
And that hand to get things going with, for Switzerland, you know, Cosmic Anomaly is a good anti-Druid card when just thrown down and demands an answer. So is Stargazer Luna, but they're not particularly aggressive in the early turns. You want to be finding 2-drops, and obviously, as ever, you want to be finding the old Mana Wormo just to get that damage chipping through. Stargazer Luna is ending up being kept here, because I guess Rabin is thinking, in order for us to win this fairly unfavorable matchup, something has to go very right. We have to get some kind of a powerful swing turn, which probably comes in the form of Stargazer Luna after a Mana Worm. They did, however, unfortunately, not find that Mana Worm. They didn't even find a 2-drop.
It's just all about curving out minions, I think, in this matchup. Unfortunately, Switzerland run a mirror entity as they're in their flex spot, which isn't ideal against Token Druid. That's not really running many minions, or like just Saronite Chain Gang, which isn't a great card for mirror entity. As Insane gets Wild Growth on 2.
Yeah, that's a BlizzCon kind of draw right there, I think, for Insane.
Again, Ukraine last year, 2nd place Hearthstone Global Games. This year, they are going for gold.
The future is ours.
And they can deal with this with Swipe, so...
Yeah, the gambit set up right from the start for Switzerland in trying to get a massive turn with Stargazer Luna is set up. I think we are very likely going to see the Swipe to deal with that, though.
But then Switzerland play Cosmic Anomaly, and they say, hey, Insane, do you now have an answer for this as well?
Yep.
And then they play the second one. I don't know. The Rabbit has a shot here.
Next turn, we could just see Savage Roar Hero Power, which does take out the Cosmic Anomaly. It's very much not a good play.
But at that point, Rabin knows, hey, there's not much removal for this card. I'll play the second one.
Ooh.
So yeah, Ukraine just going to have to snap play the Savage Roar.
Yeah, there was a real consideration. Well, I mean, it didn't appear to be much of a consideration, but Coin Plague Tyrant, Floopy Tyrant wasn't bad. It's a big board you made. However, doing that into any other minion I think would be fine. Doing it into an Arcane and Cosmic Anomaly when they can go Shooting Star, I think is just too scary.
Well, honestly, from where I'm sitting, Switzerland have one way to win this game, and that is going to be play the second Cosmic Anomaly now and just hope that it sticks.
Yeah, somehow.
The last one was cleared by Savage Roar Hero Power. There's no way Ukraine snap plays that if they have another way of removing it.
Yeah, if they had Spellstone, anything else, you'd do that instead. But as the real power card in this matchup, in Malfurion, the Pestilent is available to come down next turn for Insane on their turn 5, with the Wild Growth being played as well. Sorry, that is the real aggro mage killer. It just destroys that deck in its own right.
But then looking, if that's the sequence of plays, so the Rabin plays Cosmic Anomaly, Insane plays Malfurion, the Rabin can go Shooting Star, Cinderstorm, Arcane Missiles. He can start getting the damage. Oh, start with the missiles now, I guess.
It's true. But then one armor gain card for Ukraine. He can then just hero power down the Anomaly and very happily follow up with just hero powers to face every turn. Armoring up every turn, sorry.
What if the Rabin picks up the second Shooting Star here? Does that make a difference? Not really. Oh!
Interesting.
So going to go with the Arcane Tyrant Floop turn here instead of Malfurion. I wonder why they didn't do this earlier.
Well, if they'd gone for coin, I think if you are going to do it, this is the turn to do it, because coin into Spreading Plague into Double Guy left a Cosmic Anomaly on the board when they could have dealt with it with Savage or Hero Power, and it didn't curve into Malfurion, because they would have gone coin 6-drop with no 6-drop follow-up outside of another Plague, which is unlikely to summon more than one Scarab.
It's go time. It's got to be. This, Arcane Intellect.
Yep.
Still got the mana to play Shooting Star Cinderstorm after that.
This is it.
Might draw something better. Might draw a second Shooting Star.
This is a pretty scary board for Insane. He's so close to stabilizing, but he is definitely not quite there yet.
Oh, he's going to use the ping instead of the Arcane Intellect.
Perfect missiles there, clearing up everything that Ukraine has available to them.
Gotta draw, gotta draw, gotta get that second Arcane Missiles. Now is the time.
Or a Luneth, or more minions to throw down, just anything to get this damage through to face.
This is why I wasn't sure about not playing the Arcane Intellect first. Switzerland could have played double Shooting Star, then Cinderstorm to deal the full 7 damage to the face.
That would have worked out a lot better. Yeah, they are being punished. This is why you draw first.
Then again,
why it's a meme.
They have the Shooting Star to deal with the, or to help deal with these 1/5 Scarabs now, so I guess that...
Still probably would have gone for it if they could have done.
Yeah, for sure.
Ooh, another AI is a very nice pickup. I wonder if they've learnt their lesson. I guess they could go for the glyph first.
Yeah, either or. Counter spells, not great as there's a coin in hand.
And after that second Shooting Star is used, Spreading Plague all of a sudden becomes significantly juicier, but
Molten Reflections. And then the Shooting Star just immediately deals with the...
so sick!
It's just a shame there's no damage spells this turn.
Yeah.
This is what I mean though, when Aggro Mage does its thing, it does its thing, and it's all about drawing the minions. The Rabbit was able to go, Luna, do you have removal for it?
Yeah.
Yes, okay. Anomaly, do you have removal for it?
Yeah.
Yes, okay. Anomaly, you're out of removal, now I'm going to try and win the game. All it would take is a Fireball now, right?
And so the play here obviously has to be Plague, probably with a coin first of all to get rid of that counter spell.
Oh, it would take more than Fireball, sorry.
So then after you go Spreading Plague, if you hero power down the Cosmic Anomaly, that's GG to a Fireball.
A tangled web.
Yes.
It's pretty amazing. The Rabin has got himself into this position against a Malfurion, just the best card against Tempo Mage. And it's because of the lack of removal. This is the benefit of modern Aggro Mage, is that you, like you said, you have these minions that you just have to kill.
And they're not badly shaped minions either. I mean, 4 mana 4/3 isn't great, but it's also not terrible.
Compare it to Evolved Kobold. Like,
Right, exactly.
this card is just a good card in its own right. It's very, very powerful.
Stargazer Luna has fine stats. I mean, it's the classic 3 mana 2/4, isn't it? It's the Bran Bronzebeard, the Flame Waker. Oh my goodness! What? 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 What just happened? How could Ukraine make that mistake? How did that just happen?
So it came off of... That came off
It was drawn.
a glyph. Was it drawn?
No, it was drawn from the deck. It was drawn by the Arcane Intellect. That is one of the worst mistakes that I've seen in the Hearthstone Global games.
So maybe they were thinking they're in such a bad spot, they have to save that for coin UI off the top next turn. I don't know what to tell you. That seems like a pretty simple blunder there to be just throwing away the game there. It wasn't looking good for them either way. They were still probably going to be losing that game, but I don't know. That's why you keep. That's one of the main reasons for keeping the coin for that long.
Let's take a look at what's coming up next in this series, which has just taken a nosedive for Ukraine. Next up, it's going to be Hypno on the Death Rattle Hunter versus Kalento on the Shadow Shaman. And like I said before that game, if Switzerland win that game, which they did, suddenly the series is looking a lot better for them.
Yeah, I don't really know what just happened there for Ukraine. They do, however, have themselves here a pretty Miz matchup. This is not what you're looking for at all as the Shadowwalk Shaman, because Death Rattle Hunter just has so many threats. Turn after turn. In the early turns, it takes the form of Keleseth, Eggs, Terrascale Stalkers, maybe a Houndmaster Shore. Mid-game, you're looking at stuff like the Savannah Highmane, most scarily of all, the Katharina Winterwisp can be a real nightmare for that deck to deal with. And even if it comes down to it, although Deathstalker Rexar is a little bit slow for this matchup generally because you're afraid of taking it too slowly and being killed off by the Shudderwock, there I find are just too many threats. Even with the silence effects of Earthshock and the hexes as well, all those Death Rattle effects are just too powerful.
Yeah, it's just the classic thing, isn't it? It's as simple as control deck, Death Rattles, control deck, cubes, control deck, Savannah Highmanes. It's always been this case with Hunter. Hunter, sort of mid-rangey, slower hunters like current modern Death Rattle Hunter, have just always been good in that type of matchup.
Yeah. However, as the Shudderwock Shaman, you can still do Shudderwock things. You can just curve out with all your combo pieces into a nice early Shudderwock if you're lucky enough to do so. You can also, as often is the case with unfavorable matchups, just curve out, get your Keleseth down, get your Saronite Chain Gangs down, maybe with a Grumble as well if they struggle to remove those minions turn after turn. It's unlikely to work because Death Rattle Hunter is so strong at occupying the board with all their sticky minions. But I think it's one of the best shots that is available to Kolento in this matchup. And if anyone can win this, it's Kolento. Very proficient Shudderwock player.
Yeah, and I'm going to say that stupid thing again. Keleseth on 2. Pretty good in this matchup. In any matchup, it's just a good card. But it makes a big difference because, as you said, playing onto the board for the Shaman, that's sort of the way that they can stand a chance. They've got a much better chance at doing that if they play a 2-mana 2/2 that buffs their entire deck.
Yeah, and also it means that they can leverage their removal cards less for just clearing the board and surviving, and more for tempo. If there's an equal board state where your opponent slams down a Highmane and you hex it, then you can use the rest of your turn to develop, I don't know, an Acolyte of Pain, something like that. Just keep the momentum rolling, and at the very least, if you're not killing your opponent, just keep that board clear, make sure you're setting up for the most reliable Shudderwock possible with the highest chance of bouncing it back. And once that does happen, if you can get the 1-mana Shudderwock to activate back to your hand with a Life Drinker, you have won that game.
Ukraine is struggling this series, though. Like, I mean, I'm still reeling from that last game. But looking back at the Odd Warrior Mirror, there was the turn for Neyria where he played the Eternium Rover, or wanted to play the Eternium Rover too late. He should have traded first to deal the damage before the taunt appeared, and that was clearly a mistake. Ukraine's game has not been rock solid today.
It's been little mistakes from where I've been sat, like errors rather than. Errors in play rather than errors in judgment.
Right.
I think their overall game plan has been pretty good. Their Odd Warrior Mirror, slamming things down as quickly as possible.
For sure. Yeah.
I liked the way they sequenced out their minions in the Token Druid game, where they could have gone for the coin into Plague, but they instead used the Savage Roar with the Hero Power to take out the Cosmic Anomaly. Just unfortunate that the second one was found for them. But it has been little mistakes that have been letting them down.
I expect to see a full mulligan there for Ukraine, though. Like double Acolyte, Lightning Storm, it's Keleseth he's looking for. He wants, even Saronite, it's just something to put onto the board.
Yeah, Acolyte of Pain isn't a bad early card. If they do play, if your opponent plays Keleseth, sorry, you are drawing likely 2 cards off of that.
So maybe they keep 1?
Yeah, I wouldn't hate keeping 1.
Hypno's ended up with King Crush in his hand. Not ideal.
Yeah, that's never really what you're looking for, is it? In the end, though, they do decide looking for those power cards like Keleseth, but also just curve cards. Saronite Chain Gang, Mind Control Tech can be a big punish.
Yeah, Ukraine's hand is looking okay. Not great, but okay. Oh, we're off to a relatively slow start on both sides.
Bit of a tough choice here for Hypno. The Highmane can be very powerful in this matchup, but it's inevitably going to be vulnerable to Hex. Chain Gang smooths out the curve a little bit if he wants to go Coin Houndmaster into Chain Gang. Playdead, I guess, has the highest potential upside with the cube in hand, which is why it's being chosen in the end. Makes sense.
But you're right, I mean, there was certainly merit to all three. I particularly like the idea of coining out Houndmaster and then playing the Sound
Yeah.
turn after that, because that also allows for some really great surprise trades.
I think this is what you want to do in this matchup, though, is to make big, surprisingly powerful turns. Because if you just play Cube on a minion but don't play dead it, they go for Hex or they go for Earthshock. Whereas if you go Cube, play dead on the same turn, you know, they can't deal with the wide board whilst also silencing at the same time, usually.
Now with the egg draw, this hand sort of
Yes.
plays itself. Coin out the egg, play the Terror Scale next turn. Houndmaster short on 4, and then he can think about Cube shenanigans the turn after that.
Is the Earthshock answer, though, here for Ukraine?
It's not bad here.
Yeah, have to imagine this is going to come down. There is potential for saving it for big upside later on, but if they summon a 5/5 next turn, they start to dominate the board very quickly indeed, so I do like this choice. Just get the egg out of the way for the moment, because maybe they just don't have a cube in hand.
So now it becomes a 3-mana 3/3.
That is very sad in comparison.
Curve into Houndmaster Shore, and then a Volcano goes off. Okay, Ukraine have a hand on this board.
Yeah, they're looking all right.
They're not really drawing anything that's going to win them the game, though. They need the Shadow Walk, they need the Life Drinker. They want more card draw cards. Those Acolyte of Pains that we saw thrown out, that'd be great combined with one of these Volcanoes later.
And the Terrascale Stalker has, while not necessarily shut down the Saronite Chain Gang, made it significantly worse. Every play here is far from optimal for Colento. The Mind Control tech has massive potential upside later on, especially with the egg there, constantly pushing up the amount of minions on board, so it's very difficult for Switzerland to play around the Mind Control tech. Electro Storm Surge is very powerful later on with Volcano, Lightning Storm, even just the Healing Rain wouldn't be bad at all. So I think a Hero Power Pass here, as crazy as it sounds, is probably the best way here for Colento to set up for that Volcano on the next turn. And you've got to imagine that for Hypno, his dogs will be hunting Colento down.
Very slowly.
It is vulnerable to the Volcano, I suppose.
Yeah.
And the follow-up to that, if it does die, is weak, because you don't just want to play Cube on nothing.
Because then it gets hexed.
But if you do play Houndmaster Shore and it survives, would you ever Cube it anyway? You'd want to save it for Cube Play Dead, I think, on turn 6.
So we're talking maybe Spider Bomb on the following turn, trade it into something.
Well, I think maybe what we're looking at here is save the Houndmaster for next turn, because then you can go Cube Play Dead on the following turn. And why commit into a Volcano right now, I guess is their thinking.
If they Volcano now, it does reduce their mana, so they only have 4 mana to play the following turn. That's the thing about Shadowwalk Shaman, is that as soon as the Overload cards start getting played, they sort of spiral out of control, because you end up making a worse tempo play the following turn, and then you have to play another Overload card to catch up again. But yeah, it's very hard to justify leaving this Houndmaster Shore alive here. I'm almost certain Volcano has to come down now.
I'm not necessarily so certain it has to come down, because it only gives rush, it doesn't give charge, and you don't really have anything of value on the board right now. You know, the totems are nice, but they're not crucial to your game plan at all. So I think maybe setting up for a stronger one next turn.
Well, my question is, like, can you then play Volcano the following turn, or is there then too much health on the board?
What are they going to do next turn?
Well, there's already 13 health on the board, including the totems. So if they put more than 2 health on the board, suddenly the Volcano doesn't clear everything.
That's a fair point.
Oh, 3 health rather, because the spell damage.
Spell damage.
Yeah.
What are they going to play though? Like on turn 5, Cube is very vulnerable to Hex, so I don't think Hypno would be going for that.
True. Saronite Chain Gang.
And if you go for Life Drinker on this turn, it probably squishes up the board a bit anyway. I think I like this hesitance for Ukraine, because they are, I agree, definitely afraid of Death Rattle effects coming down, but I think they have a good read on Switzerland that the Cube won't be played on this turn, even if it's in hand.
Okay, so here's a question for you, Derek. Because there are now 2 cubes in the hand. Do you think that means Switzerland can afford to play a cube on the egg, just to sort of bring it back into the game?
cubing egg is so slow.
It is. But then the following turn, they cube played at the Hellmaster Shore, and that's much stronger. The first cube is because they've got nothing else they can do.
Yeah.
Like, what's slower? Not playing the cube here, just playing nothing?
Yeah.
Or cubing the egg?
Yeah,
Probably
yeah.
playing nothing is slower.
And if they knew they were against a deck with like no silence or transform effects, I think they would probably end up cubing the shore here,
Yeah.
or at least the 3/3. But this is a hedge around Hex. They want, and also a hedge around Mind Control tech, I suppose.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, no, there was always playing around Mind Control tech. But at the very least, it's meaning if a Hex does come down here, it's not that bad.
And that's
You're
the
only
thing.
losing a silenced egg.
They have the second cube, which will almost definitely come down next turn with the play dead. It will create a very wide board, which, yeah, will be a little bit weak to MC tech. But when the board gets that wide, it's not weak at all to Volcano.
And what their eggs do afford Hypno is a brilliant Volcano umbrella.
Oh, yes.
This is just good advice. If you are under threat of a Volcano, hide under some eggs. That was a very poor joke. Please don't do that. I don't know what proper Volcano protocol is, but I very much doubt it involves
Probably
in any capacity.
Probably get out of the area.
I think that's
Probably
safe.
evacuate.
Yeah, that sounds safe.
What if they release a Hearthstone card called Evacuate, which just protects you from volcanoes?
I doubt it.
And twisting nethers and other natural disasters.
The Volcano is finally coming down on this turn, setting up for another Volcano next turn potentially. But
Very nice timing on the Volcano there, actually. The fact that it's prevented this cube play dead turn that we were talking about.
we could see play dead on an egg cube the egg, which would put
Maybe.
2 5/5s on the board and a 4/6.
It's... yeah, okay, that's not so bad.
If there is another Volcano, it's very likely that the egg dies and a couple of your other minions survive.
The cube would once again be weak to Hex. I guess that's not the end of the world because you're also putting the 2 5/5s down.
You're
That's
weak to
interesting.
MCT then. So maybe just cube on the egg and then chill. Because then 3 minions on the board still. Good amount of pressure. If they go for a... Sorry, if they go for a Volcano, you then have 2 eggs and a 5/5 on the board.
Is cube on the egg and then play dead the cube really stupid? They end up with 1 5/5, 1 4/6, and they end up with 3 eggs on the board. But one Volcano's already been played, so I'm not sure how good that ever is.
Yeah, if they're not playing the play dead, I think this is the way to go. This is a good middle ground where you are safe against mind control tech, which is always a big consideration in Hearthstone at the moment.
Oh, they're going to do... Oh, wow, okay. They're going to do the play I suggested might be too stupid to suggest.
So this means that if another Volcano were to come down, there is 9, 14, 20 health on the board, I believe, which means you are invulnerable to the Volcano. It probably upgrades the attack on your board.
That's certainly an umbrella of eggs to hide under.
What to do?
It does mean that mind control tech usually is underwhelming. Yeah.
If MC Tech takes the cube, it's pretty bad for Hypno.
I feel like this cube could, this play dead could have been used for greater value on a following turn. Because if you go for this play, this adds no attack power to your board. What it adds is resilience to Volcano. I think even if you saw a Volcano, you still get 2 eggs out of the cube. Play dead one of them. Make yourself a 5/5.
Okay. There's... Hypno is running out of cards in his deck to play play dead on,
this.
though. Because, like, one egg's been drawn, both cubes have been drawn. What else is there to actually play dead?
Mental dislocator.
There it is, the expected result there for Kalento.
I preferred your Umbrella Volcano joke.
That wasn't even a joke, that was the ramblings of a madman.
I see.
Right, well, Switzerland now are in a fine spot. They can flanking strike away the 3/3, counter shot away the 2/1, and start hitting the face. And that egg is actually just getting in Ukraine's way. It's like Totem, right? Like Grumble puts it back in the hand, it's clogging up the hand, plays it again, it's clogging up the board.
That's true. If they can go for an Electra into Volcano, which they probably will at a later date, 30 damage to the board, probably leaves them with a 5/5 afterwards. Yeah, I'm still trying to map out in my head how this would be looking for Hypno if he hadn't gone for the play dead on the cube there for 2 more eggs. It would already have been such a vastly different game. It's difficult to compare how it would have gone either way. But they do have, as it currently stands, a decent enough amount of attack on the board, so yeah, it's worked out well enough. And it does mean the plays for Ukraine aren't looking that great.
No. Electra into Volcano just isn't good enough here. It leaves far too much damage.
Even on the board. 12, 18, yeah, that'd be enough for a full board clear. But obviously,
but it would leave
10
the
damage on the
5/5s,
board.
yeah.
And 2 eggs as well.
Well, if the first Volcano dealt with the cube, then the second Volcano would start dealing with the eggs.
Good point.
So it could potentially leave up to 20 damage on the board.
Oh, yeah, you're
the variables.
totally right.
Where's Lorinda? Where's Lorinda?
Yeah, man, that gets confusing very quickly because it's not just a 30 damage volcano, it's 2 15 damage volcanoes, which is different.
Lorinda's going to spend the next 6 hours working this one out and then get back to us, hopefully.
And if you don't go for that, what do you do? Mana Tide Chain Gang? Chunk a fair bit of damage then. Yeah. I think even if they have mapped it out, being the geniuses that most of the players on Ukraine are, I think they've probably come to the same conclusion that it's just going to be leaving, on average, too much damage on the board.
If Switzerland would like some more eggs, Terrascal Stalker on the cube is 2 more eggs. Which sort of does just lock out the Volcano forever, doesn't it?
I guess.
And the Lightning Storms. Either way, Hypno can very easily clear off the Sour Knight Chain Gang and the Mana Tide Totem. No Grumble been played yet, so Hypno's not under any threat of Shadow Walk. Though, as we can see, all Ukraine need to draw is Shadow Walk, and they are ready to go.
Mm. That's true. But they do need to find time to actually play it, because while that will keep them lethal on the following turn, they only gain 6 health on the turn they actually play the double Shadow Walk. And Hypno is taking very aggressive routes here.
And they do need to play the Grumble first as well.
Yes, yeah. And that means just 6 health left remaining for Kalento. He's going to have to do something very quickly indeed if he wants to be able to salvage this game, which I guess is going to take the form of Electra into Lightning Storm and hope that you get incredibly lucky.
How?
What is the lucky result? You... Oh no,
roll 3 on both eggs and then what? Like,
you roll 2 on both eggs. Okay, so maybe 1 Lightning Storm's better. If
1 lucky Lightning Storm.
Even then you can't kill off the 5/5, so Hex Lightning Storm? I guess Hex Lightning Storm.
So
Oh, no.
we're hexing the 5/5. We're leaving... No, but the hero power...
Hex Lightning Storm Hero Power, roll a taunt. You die to King Crush, obviously.
As fun as this discussion is, yeah, King Crush is in hand.
Yeah.
Ready to go. Kalento is dead.
Yeah, we're trying to find points from where Kalento is sat, by the way, of where he can possibly try and survive. To just optimize his play.
Acolyte of Pain, Volcano.
Hushy.
It kills the 5/5, both eggs survive. Draw Glacial Shard from the Acolyte of Pain. Freeze the cube.
Wow. Genius plays here, my friend.
That's the scenario.
Yep, there's just nothing left here, really, that can save Ukraine. Even without the King Crush in hand, I would imagine this would just be lights out for them.
Oh, I didn't kill either egg.
Yeah.
So there's that.
They needed to go for like Lightning Storm or something. This is just over. Hypno does manage to equalize the field here after taking a very convincing 2 losses at the start. This is an equal playing field now. Whoever loses this next games of Hearthstone is out. 1 chance left to stay in the global games.
The winner of the series will be playing off in the winners round against either Norway or China.
That's right.
For their spot at, or the loser of that game for their spot at BlizzCon.
Yeah.
We're going to go to one last break this series, but when we come back, the final game between Switzerland and Ukraine. It's going to be Token Druid versus Death Rattle Hunter after this. It's Switzerland versus Ukraine. The score is 2-2 with only 1 game remaining, loser of which will be eliminated from the Hearthstone Global Games, while the winner has a shot to get to BlizzCon. It's going to be Token Druid for Switzerland versus Death Rattle Hunter for Ukraine. Derek, What do you make of this matchup?
This is a little... well, this match has been a bit of a learning curve for me because Death Rattle Hunter, one of the main reasons it rose to such popularity was its good matchup against Druid.
Yep.
It just has too many threats. The Death Rattles are very awkward for Druid to deal with, given that they very, very rarely run silence. And that means that the threats are too consistent. They can outvalue you with Katharina and Rexstar and all that stuff. However, Token Druid functions very differently to the likes of Togwaggle or Malagos Druid because it can get to its win condition blisteringly fast.
Right.
Like if you just go Wild Growth into Whispering Woods, you're basically most of the way there already. If that can't be dealt with, Soul of the Forest or Branching Paths or Savage Roar can pull you very, very far into the lead.
It's just crazy how fast this deck can kill you with the Savage Roars, with the Branching Paths. And I guess, yeah, Spreading Plague is the big highlight here. It's the best card for countering Hunter in general, actually, across all of the Druid decks. But in this deck specifically, where you can Spreading Plague into so much damage, into Arcane Tyrant, into Floop as well, it can just kill you very, very fast. As you were getting a little bit excited by the Wild Growth there.
Well, I mean, Wild Growth into Whispering Woods is a very, very fast start.
It's only like 5 Wisps, though, isn't it? Or is it 4 Wisps, even?
What would that be? I can't figure out. Yeah, 4 or 5 Wisps, which is like, it's fine. It's a decent way to start, especially when you have a Branching Path to buff up the attack. You are correct that it won't necessarily come down on curve, but the answers on turn 4 for Hunter to a wide board aren't really there. It's too early for Rexstar, and it's too early for Mossy.
Rexstar will be able to clear a board, obviously, on turn 6, board of 1/1s or a board of 2/2s. Maybe that's too late then. No, it shouldn't be too late.
Apologies for the slight spectator glitch, but Mossy Horror, I would imagine, no matter what the other cards there, again, we could not see those either. Mossy Horror seems like a pretty safe pick. It's your way of dealing with a wide board. And they are going to have to find a way of dealing with a wide board because Wild Growth, Whispering Woods, Soul of the Forest, that is a board.
It will only be 4 Wisps, but that's not so
That's
bad.
fine.
Like 4 1/1s that then become 2/2s and can become, 4 2s the turn after. Hello, second Soul of the Forest. Yeah, that Whispering Woods is getting played right now.
There's like some reasoning, I guess, to go Branching Paths first, to draw more cards, to make more Wisps. But if you go Whispering Woods this turn, they can go best case scenario, Mind Control Tech, Candle Shot, I guess. They basically don't have a good answer. And then you can go Soul of the Forest quite happily. I like just getting it on the board right now and moving towards your win condition.
I agree. I agree. Hunter is not a class that can punish you for going too wide anymore. Long gone are the Unleash the Hounds days. As Ukraine play the Spider Bomb, that's a minion that can deal with 2 of these Wisps in theory. The Soul of the Forest.
Oh, if Hypno can just find himself a Nourish, he is in such a good spot.
So what's the play here? Does he Soul of the Forest and trade 2 of the Wisps in and hope he ends up with 3 2/2s?
I reckon you probably just go Soul of the Forest face. Like, you don't have to be trading, really, do you?
I guess. I'd be a little bit worried of something like a Terrascale Stalker, and then he can trade the 2/2 into the 2/2 that gets made, and then gets rid of another Wisp.
Still got a
Maybe
lot of
that's
stuff
not
on
so
board
bad,
then.
yeah.
Setting up for another strong Soul of the Forest next turn. He's clearly considering Arcane Tyrant on this turn because it would, I suppose, set up for a stronger Soul of the Forest next turn. But then you're running into the issues of just sacrificing the 2/2 into the Arcane Tyrant. I think you just, again, carry on with the standard game plan here. You are potentially making yourself 8 2/2s here off of this Soul of the Forest, which is just very powerful indeed. Yeah, launch everything through to face as well.
Yeah, the more
Love
I
it.
think about it, the more I like the look of this too.
Because you don't want to, as a very old and rough adage in Hearthstone, of give your opponent's minion Wind Fury. You don't want it to be able to attack into 2 of your minions effectively. Because they want to clear your board. You don't want to clear their board as the token druid. You're on the aggressive.
So for Nayria, Saronite Chain Gang is looking okay. That's a pretty good way of stalling out until he can coin out Rexstar or Mossy Horror.
Yeah.
Actually, Saronite Chain Gang is very awkward for Hypno. He'd have to... I don't even know how he'd deal with this.
Yeah, you could just go buff up a Branching Paths, start trading through. He obviously wants to play another Soul of the Forest.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, would he trade 3 into one of the chain gangs and then play Soul of the Forest straight away? Maybe it's tricky.
How long can this go on?
Ooh, that's an interesting pickup. Do you just go Plague Double Tyrant now?
now?
I reckon you do.
Trade double. Okay, and just
Then
leave
next
those
turn you
Tyranites
can just
alive.
go Soul of the Forest. Yeah, you don't need to be trading in.
Oh, it's such a weird
Or
use of spreading plague.
You're
but-
starting to run into Mossy Horror and Rexar stuff now, though, which
Yeah.
really needs to influence your decision making here. Because if it was all the attacks in and then coin Mossy or coin Rexar, like coin Rexar next turn, unless Switzerland do something drastic right now, probably just pushes them miles behind.
What?
I'm still looking at like trade in 3 Wisps into the Saranites, then play the second Soul of the Forest and pass. He ends up with a board full of 2/2s that all have Death Rattle Summon a 2/2.
Yeah, and you'd rather that than the immediate benefit, which gets punished by Rexar.
Yeah. Even then, Rexar's pretty powerful against that
Yeah,
board, though.
it's very good. I think all things considered, this is
Yeah.
the most reliable way because at the very least, this gets double Tyrant onto the board, which is resilient to both
Yeah.
Mossy and it's resilient to Rexar as well.
Yeah, the Taunt protects the Wisps. Okay, yeah, I like the middle ground there as well because now the Taunt can't be dealt with.
Yeah.
Terrascal Stalker is a nice pickup for Ukraine, though it would then prevent Naria from coining out Mossy or Rexar.
So if we see coin Rexar this turn, that means you could then attack in the Saronite, then the Spider Bomb into the Taunt, which would kill off either a 2/4 or one of 2 2/2s.
Yeah.
4/2, sorry.
That's really good, yeah.
Which means he's left with, at best, 2 4/2s and a 2/2, and at worst, 2 2/2s and a 4/2. I think. Which is a very reasonable spot for Ukraine to be in. They've dealt with this surprisingly well, I would say, after, I assume, Rexar comes down.
They have, and Switzerland are going to need something. Like you said, Nourish on turn 5 would have been great so they can ramp up and play those Arcane Tyrants. They need an Ultimate Infestation, but they don't have the mana to play it yet. I guess they need Malfurion as soon as possible?
We could actually see coin Mossy, though, because I believe the Spider Bomb's Death Rattle was played before the Wisp's Death Rattle was
Yes,
played.
it was.
So it would kill off a 4/4 100%.
Wow, going for the
Instead,
terrorist.
here, they are preserving both of their power board sweepers for a more powerful turn.
If the Spider Bomb hits the
Wow.
Tyrant, that's pretty huge.
This is very
a hit.
conservative play, and it works out well for them. This is not a play that I was looking at, as I have to be honest, when you see a wide board and you have the potential to go Rexar or Mossy, you usually just take that shot as the hunter.
But Hypno is sort of left with nothing to do here. If they play the second Soul of the Forest, then what happens? Each of those Wisps would summon 2 2/2s when they die. The Arcane Tyrant would summon a 2/2, but that's just no good against Mossy and Rexar.
Worth pointing out, though, that Switzerland is just one Nourish, one UI, any kind of card draw away from refilling their hand to a point where they can easily mount another assault.
What to do?
Time waits for no one.
They really don't want to be using that second Soul of the Forest if they can help it, though, because that means any subsequent assaults that they do try and mount onto the board become way weaker.
It's sort
That's
of
why they're going with the swipe.
the main key resource available to them. Okay, this is slightly less weak to Rexar because it means it won't just kill the Arcane Tyrant. In fact, Rexar would leave a 2/2 and the 4/2 on the board, which is fine. Mossy Horror would also leave a 2/2 and the 4/4. It's okay. This is again, it's a nice hedge. Though Hypno clearly doesn't have any way of getting lethal from his 2-card hand.
Yeah, very, very clearly. Which I think is what led Nyria to going with the less defensive turn last turn, saving his trump cards in Rexar and Mossy, because he knew the chances of him having double Savage Roar next turn is very low indeed. He probably can't kill me. So now the available options outside of Rexar and Mossy are limited. It's pretty much just play Cube, which is not a ridiculous suggestion because they were obviously hesitant to play the Mossy or the Rexar last turn, so I would imagine they are going to be hesitant to play them again on this turn. However, the Mossy coming down with the ability to clear up some of these minions, showing that they are a little bit scared now, and they just want to start developing onto the board more aggressively.
Finally, though, Switzerland get a means to draw cards. I mean, yeah, I know they have branching paths already, but they really want to use branching paths aggressively, so this Nourish is almost a way back into the game. However, with a Whispering Woods gone, with a Spreading Plague gone, with both Arcane Tyrants already played, Hypno's deck is significantly weaker than it was earlier.
And those are some decent draws being found.
Yeah.
Plague becomes very valuable with the Scavenger now that Mossy Horror has been used from the deck. Obviously, Ultimate Infestation is still an incredibly powerful card no matter what variant of Druid you're playing. So I'd have to imagine, even if it ends up being for just 2, maybe 3 Scarabs, Spreading Plague Soul of the Forest or Spreading Plague Stoneshell Scavenger is definitely going to be coming down at some point soon.
Meanwhile, though, Ukraine are able to completely clear the board this turn if they want. They can play Rexar, they can actually coin out Katharina.
Oh, yeah.
King Crush would be clearing the board, Witchwood Grizzly would be a very nice defensive play there. Savannah Highmane is the worst outcome, but still, it's a Savannah Highmane. I don't really need to say anything else.
Yeah, it's probably the worst outcome, but it's still... Yeah, it's still a Highmane. It's still a lot of pressure onto the board because, what, 12, 14 damage on the board means it's pretty handily 2-turn lethal setup
Just
for
saying,
Ukraine.
If Switzerland did have double Savage Roar in hand, this would be lethal. Unfortunately, double Branching Paths, as it doesn't buff the face, will not be lethal.
I still think for Ukraine this was the way to go because they had, what, a 3 out of 4 chance of summoning either a charge to kill off the Tyrant or a taunt to protect them.
Wow, they're going with the attack buff anyway. They're setting up for the ultimate infestation lethal next turn.
This is a brave play, and if you think about it, so if it worked, if this worked and you get lethal, brilliant, you win the game. The only defensive measure to gain health here for Ukraine is Rexar. They have to play Rexar on this turn because this play obviously indicates an ultimate infestation. And then for Switzerland, their opponents just played Rexar on 1 minion. Then they go Plague Soul of the Forest.
Yep.
And they just kind of win. I think this is a very smart play by Hypno.
Yeah, I mean, playing both Branching Paths for attack is fine, given that they're about to draw 5 cards anyway. So how does this work?
Unless...
Nerea has to play Rexar.
12, 14, 22, 24? If he... Sorry, I just wanted to make sure here. No. If the cube comes down on the Katharina, that's 14 damage on board. King Crush would be up to 22, 24 damage potentially available on this turn with a 1 out of 3 for King Crush. Unless, obviously, sorry, King Crush came off of the tracking on turn 1, which we could not see as a spectator. We are just as much in the dark as you are.
Yeah, not necessarily a risk that they'd want to take anyway.
Yes, yeah. This is the only play available.
So, 12 damage goes face as the Mossy Horror is obviously trading. Looks like number 14. It's not quite... Nerea hasn't quite set up lethal. Hypno is gaining 5 armor next turn as well.
Apologies again that we cannot see the the Zombeasts available. But now for Switzerland, if they go Ultimate Infestation face, they take 12, they're at 19. King Crush summoned in any way of Katharina, be it through Playdeads or Terrasniel Stalkers, would end the game.
Can they not just go Spreading Plague Soul of the Forest now and then win the game next turn?
Yeah. I'm just looking at a potential 2-turn Ultimate Infestation setup.
Okay.
If they survived every time then, that would probably be the way to go. But they do not survive every time. They leave themselves very open to dying. So I think setting up the taunts with Spreading Plague into Soul of the Forest is the way to go.
And from what we can see, it looks like that would work. Well, no, because Spider Bomb plus Cube things could happen.
That's true.
Oh, this is a close game.
Very, very close. And Switzerland here are clearly considering some other line of play, UI face, just to set up for another UI or a swipe to face to close out the game. But they know King Crush could come down. Either from hand or from the Katharina.
Decision
They are
time.
taking the risk, though.
I think this is better, though. This is the better play around Spider Bomb.
There's a Witchwood Grizzly. That's another card that is not King Crush, taken out of the deck. If the other card on the tracking was the Witchwood Grizzly on turn 1, again, we could not see that, then Carnivorous Cube could just deliver lethal 100% here.
They're going for
Here
it.
we go.
There's the
Oh!
boy, Nairia, finally with King Crush from the Katharina, takes the series, eliminating Switzerland from the Hearthstone Global Games. Wow, okay. I guess it was a Witchwood Grizzly in that first tracking. Who knew?
Well, or they could have just got a little bit lucky with the King Crush there. Nairia giving us the eyebrows there, showing us, you know, he's got what it takes to summon the King Crush from the deck. And that was a very delicate final game. Very nice. I didn't know we had props here at the Global Games.
Yeah.
I think that was well played compared to how they played against Norway earlier. There were a couple of minor blips, I think we can agree, from Ukraine throughout that series, mostly to do with technical errors and small mistakes. But overall, their game plan seemed pretty solid. I liked a lot of their decision-making.
Let's take a look at the series that we just watched and how tight it was for Ukraine, who won the first 2 games but almost got reverse swept by the Rabin and Hypno. There were a few dodgy turns, a few bits of a few technical mistakes, I think it's fair to say, for Ukraine. But in the end, they took down a difficult matchup, and they did a great job with it of beating that Whispering Woods play.
Yeah, the big talking point there for me for Hypno, or that last game, sorry, was actually I'm starting to think the UI might have just been the wrong play. Because, you know, Spider Bomb stuff can happen from hand, but first of all, they've already played 1 Spider Bomb at the start of the game, so they have to have drawn the second one. The chances of King Crush being summoned that turn were very high, because if it's in hand, you can obviously just play it and win the game, and if it's in the deck, you've probably drawn a couple of other beasts up until that point, or discarded them from tracking, which makes you more likely to be able to pull it from the deck. So I wonder if it was more likely to win the game through Spreading Plague on that turn, even though that also probably would not have got the job.
Well, yeah, the problem with Spreading Plague is that the trades could happen, then Spider Bomb into Cube would have dealt with one of the 2/2s, which would have prevented the 2-turn lethal.
Or even just Flanking Strike or something.
Yeah, right. All right, we are going to have a chat with Old Boy from Team Ukraine. See what he has to say after that tough series. Hey, Old Boy, congratulations for beating Switzerland. That one got a bit close, didn't it?
Hey guys, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, that one got quite close, didn't it?
Yeah, I did.
First thing I want to ask you is, I think the question on all of our minds, the Aggro Mage Token Druid game, the Spreading Plague that got counterspelled right at the end, was that an intentional decision to play the Spreading Plague before you play the coin, or was that just a mistake?
Yeah, of course it was, because we thought that the only way we can win this game is by drawing UI next turn.
Yeah,
Right.
that's what I was saying.
Playing
Derek
in-
did suggest that, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and,
because they have.
sorry, go ahead.
They have like 1 counter spell and 2
Yeah.
runes, right?
Mhm.
So it's more possible that it's not a counter spell. We
Yeah.
went for that.
Didn't work out in the end, but I wanted to ask you, your Odd Warrior game, that was quite a long one, but a very aggressively played game. Were you all in agreement with how that game should have been played out? You were playing very aggressively throughout that game, and it worked well for you.
Actually, no, we were arguing during the whole game because Calento thought that it's better to play minions every turn and get more pressure. I was about to save some minions for some situations that can happen, like 4 minions we can play MC Tech and so on. And there were like many discussions about what max we choose, what trades we should do. So that's why it was so long from our side to make a good decision.
Interesting. Okay, final question, Old Boy. Obviously, you've now got to wait and see who wins between Norway and China. You'll be playing against the losers for your spot at BlizzCon. Which of those teams are you hoping to see win?
I think China, because we want to get our revenge.
Oh, you want to eliminate Norway
You know,
at their
yeah,
final
we-
chance.
Like we made 2 crucial mistakes in the first series, in the game 1 with Mage and in game 4 with Duck and Druid. So we were like very favorite in that series, and we made the mistakes. That's why we want to beat Norway.
So do you think
Qualify.
your deck lists line up better against Norway's than China's?
I think China is favorite against us, but
Okay.
that's like another reason why we want to play Norway to play fine match.
All right, well, congratulations one more time, old boy. Go and get some rest as you have another big game coming up tomorrow. So congratulations.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Oh, it's got to be tough, hasn't it? Like, they've just won this game this morning. No time to relax. They now have to sit, watch Norway versus China, and get ready to play against the winner tomorrow.
Yeah, that's going to be a very close one. And it's interesting to hear about the dynamics on Team Ukraine.
It is interesting.
A lot of disagreeing, because there are many people I would rather have disagree with me than Kalenta. I think he would be quite a scary man to have differing opinions from.
Well, either way, it worked out in the end. Looking back at game one, I mean, this game was one-sided all the way through.
Yep, not even a chance.
Old boy got his hero card. Switzerland did not. Until, 3 cards from the bottom of the deck?
Yeah.
There was really nothing Gusanaj could do.
Yeah, one of those games, it happens, sadly, as, like we said, it's very Death Knight oriented and just didn't come together for Switzerland. This one, however, was a lot more interesting. And as we heard there, Old Boy saying Team Ukraine were not necessarily agreeing on every single play. I thought they took a decent middle road where there was, for the start of the game, very aggressive play. The Kalento school of thought, the Smolk school of thought, if you will. And then there was a midpoint, if you remember, where they slowed down, where they could have gone for Dire Horn Dynamatic to clear the board and keep up the aggression, or they could have gone Dire Horn Faceless to prepare for fatigue. They decided to go for the fatigue route and slow down on damage through to face, which I think was a respectable middle ground, which worked out well for them.
That was a mistake from Knights there.
Yeah, that didn't work out
That was a play that I particularly disagreed with as well, like where they could have played Elise and had quite an aggressive turn there, but instead they played Alarma Bot, which just worked out horribly. Then there was this vital game, and as it turns out, it was a conscious decision to hold back the coin. They decided next turn they wanted to be able to coin out Ultimate Infestation. It didn't work out. I still don't agree with it. The game wasn't over. If they did just have the Spreading Plagues on the board, they still could have potentially gotten the win there.
Yeah, I'm kind of glad I saw what they were going for there, because it obviously appeared like a bit of a mistake. However, I maybe agree with you that it was not necessarily such bad of a position right there, but if they do go Plague this turn, the Cosmic Anomalies are still there, still smacking them in the face. I feel like that maybe was their only chance to win a game that was in such a dire spot.
Yeah, I mean, even then we're looking at the potential, they'd have to draw that specific card next turn for that to pay off. But hey, maybe this is the type of out that the best players in the world spot that nobody else does.
Yeah, like playing Spreading Plague into a counterspell against Aggro Mage. Truly world-class plays.
Let's take a look at this group's bracket one last time. There you go. Ukraine have beaten Switzerland. Now there's only 2 games remaining in this group. Norway versus China coming up in a couple games time today. And then tomorrow, the loser of that game will face off against Ukraine. The winner of that one will also qualify for BlizzCon. 2 spaces remain, 3 teams remain in that group, and none of them want to be the team eliminated.
And while we have been bigging up Ukraine, talking about all their plays, we do want to give our commiserations to Switzerland.
Oh, of course.
While, I think I was expecting maybe they wouldn't make it through the group, considering they are in the group of death here in the Global Games Top 16. They did do far better than any of us were expecting, because we didn't really know much of the team, but they seem to be a very professional team. They are doing a good job of preparing every single week, even though they are not necessarily the most prestige tournament players. They've done far better than anyone expected, and next year, who knows, we could see big things from them.
Coming up next will be Portugal versus Spain, so you don't want to miss that one. More of AKA Wonder and Friends coming up.